Hello everyone, Xeno What If here. Bring in Season 2 Part 14 of What If the Transformers Were in My Hero Academia. Link in the description of the fanfiction of this What If. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this is not a scam. Chapter 27, Ready. Fight, The surprise reunion between brother and sister had thrown everyone for a loop, to say the least. No one could have expected it, but at the same time, the 1A students who were present couldn't help but feel extremely happy for Keita. She cried happy tears into her brother's shoulder as they embraced, and it almost got to a point where she was about to take her rice bowl and excuse herself from the table to go with him. However, Ice Age would say otherwise. Whoa, sis, I know you're excited to see me, but far be it from me to break up the whole friend group dynamic you got going here. The young man smiled and gave the entire table a bow. Which, by the way, thank you all for making friends with my sister. You have no idea how scared I was when she first came to UA, but now I see I had nothing to worry about. Keita deadpanned immediately, wiping her tears from her eyes. Wow, Aniki, real niece. Didn't have faith that your little sis could make it here, huh? Hey, that is not what I said at all, and you know it. Ice Age retorted. I had plenty of faith that you'd do well here, just as well as I did, in fact. Hold on. Isuku stammered, his eyes wide as he shot up from his seat. You're a UA alumni. That's so cool. Ice Age placed his hands on his hips, throwing his head back with a laugh. Haha. Yep, that's right. Graduated here almost 2 years ago. Whoa, wait a sec. Eijiro pointed at the hero from across the table. Yeah, I recognize you from past sports festivals. You're Kentaro Kiryu, the guy who transforms into ancient mammals and stuff like that. Ice Age gave a nod as Eijiro snapped his head over to Keita. And he's your brother. That's so cool. Yeah, well, it is. Keita knocked her brother in the shoulder. But as tough as he acts, he's still a big dork. But Kentaro didn't seem all that deterred from the jab. In fact, he reached over and pulled her into a headlock, bringing her in for a noogie. Ah, come on sis, ya know ya love me. Gah, Aniki, not in front of my friends. Keita slipped through his arm and rubbed her head, glaring with narrowed eyes at her brother. Kentaro gave a sigh and shook his head. Hee sis, you can act like you hate it all you want, but ya know you love it. He faced the 1A students once more, giving a bow while Keita stuck her tongue out at him from behind. But really, you have no idea how thankful I am to you guys. Really, I was anxious as hell when I heard that Keita wanted to come here, given my experience. Kyoka raised her hand up to him as the others sent him bright smiles. Oh, it's no big deal, really. Honestly, if anything, Keita's the one who made friend with us. She's the outgoing one of this group. Hey, I'm not surprised. Kentaro sent a grin over to his sister and gave her a pat on the back. Anyways, sis, you should really finish your lunch, but come find me after you're done, K. I wanna meet your friends properly, plus I wanna talk about how you've been doing so far in the festival, too. Keita sighed and gave her brother a smile, pulling him into another embrace. You got it, Aniki. Meet you in the stadium. Sounds like a plan. He ruffled Keita's hair a bit before heading off, giving the group one final wave. I'll catch you all in a bit. As he left, the Autobots all eyed one another, wearing smiles as they saw Keita give a squeal of delight as she sat down. Well, that was very wholesome. Sadie commented, leaning forward curiously. I take it you haven't seen your brother in quite a while, Keita. The Soro Parts user gave a single nod, trying to get her mind back on eating. Yeah, he's been doing his hero work overseas in America for the past year and a half. Keita could see the amazement on everyone's faces at that. Yeah, I know. Pretty daring for a beginning hero to want to start their career in a foreign country, but it's what he's always wanted to do. Huh, any particular reason why? Buck asked. Well, mom and dad do a lot of their work overseas anyway since the bigger landmasses have more fossils to dig up. Keita curled her lips as memories from childhood rushed through her mind. And, of course, we'd often get brought along on these expeditions. It's where we found out that we both wanted to be heroes once we discovered our quirks. Momo clapped her hands together joyfully. Oh, that's so sweet that you share that bond with your brother. So, do you want to go overseas, too, Keita? Keita gave a shrug. I dunno. Don't get me wrong, I love going overseas, but after doing that my whole childhood, I think sticking around in Japan would be good, at least for a little while. She rolled her eyes and scoffed. But my brother. Hey, he's all about getting himself out there. Trust me, you'll see it when you get to know him. Orion suddenly cleared his throat, getting everyone's attention. Well, I must say, that was a very nice moment to witness. My congratulations to you, Keita, for your family reunion. He craned his head to his Autobots, to which they gave an understanding nod. But my crew and I must go and find our seats. I'm certain that we'll see you all soon, but for now, best of luck to all of you in the second round. Thanks, Orion. Isuku saluted as all of the Autobots stood up. We'll see you in the stadium. As the Autobots left, Kyoka leaned over and gave Isuku a nudge in the arm. Hey, random question. He titled his head curiously at her, prompting her to go on. So these finals, you think you're ready for them? This'll be the first time you'll be using your full cowling thing to actually fight other fleshy people, not just mechanical beings. Isuku sucked in his lips, thinking the question over. It was true, he had never used full cowling, or even one for all, for that matter, against actual humans. Just robots or Cybertronians. Well, okay, All Might had been an exception, but the symbol of peace could handle Izuku's power quite easily. Well, at this point, I figure that I can only use about 8 or 10% of my power. Izuku balled a fist. I'm pretty sure that's enough to where I don't seriously hurt someone. Yeah, true. Kyoka pointed to her head. Though are you mentally ready to start laying the smackdown on people? Even one of us if we end up in the same bracket. That, I'm a bit less sure of. Izuku grinned. After all, you are my friends, but, I also know that you're now my competition. Kyoka smirked right back at him. Yep, no more teaming up. If we get stuck against each other, or heck, if we even meet in the finals, it's game on for me. She pointed right at his nose. And I don't want you to hesitate either. Don't go easy on me just because we're friends, got it? Alright. Izuku nodded, thoroughly marveled at how much determination his best friend was exhibiting. Of course, I won't. Eijiro raised a fist after overhearing that. Yeah, and, the same goes for us, Midoriya. We're friends, but we're rivals now, too. Denki also gave a thumbs up. I'm coming after that top spot with everything I got, so don't hold back, K. Ochako snapped her head between Momo, Mei and Keita, her eyes burning with intensity. Ladies, let's give it our all in this final stretch. She received a cheer from the girls, though Mei was still a bit distracted with her jetpack. But then, Ochako stood up, a blazing aura now surrounding her. I may not remember much of the second round, but I'm gonna use that frustration to my advantage. I'm not going down without a fight, and if I come up against that Shinso guy, he's gonna learn to regret brainwashing me. That's the spirit, Uraraka. Tenya commended with his usual chopping motions. Turn a bad situation into a good one. He faced Ojiro and raised a hand to him. Ojiro, let's do our best as well. Best of luck. Oh, yeah, right. Ojiro nodded, trying to hide the uncertainty in his voice. However, it was something that Izuku noticed, along with the tailed student seemingly being lost in his own thoughts. Ojiro, what are you thinking about? Once their lunch was finished, the group dispersed from their table, though most of them immediately followed Keita toward the stadium to meet up with her brother. Mei and Ojiro were the only exceptions, the former having returned to her workshop for the time being to fix up a few things while the latter went to think on his own. Izuku still had his concerns regarding Ojiro, but at the same time, maybe a little time alone would do him some good. The Greenette could only begin to count the number of times he needed time to himself. It didn't take long to find the Pleistocene hero, though he was hard to miss with his unique form of dress. He had found a secluded room where they could talk in peace, and the very first thing he said after waving them over was, "So, guys, I gotta ask." Kentaro's demeanor changed in a split second as he glared at the males in the group, making them flinch while lowering his head. "None of you boys are getting any ideas about my baby sister, are you?" "Ah." All the guys screamed at once, leaving the girls just as nervous behind them. But then, chop. Ow. Ice Age fell right on his face, swirls in his eyes after Keita brought her hand down on the back of his head. "Aniki, stop." Keita barked, Her face flushed red in embarrassment. Did you seriously need to pull the protective older brother crap right now? Ha ha ha. Sorry, sis. Kentaro apologized, smiling sheepishly up at her. I just always wanted to pull that trick. All of the boys fell over, seemingly half dead as Kentaro jumped to his feet. Ha ha. Wait till dad hears I pulled it before him. Grr, of course you two would wanna do that. Keita pinched the bridge of her nose. But no, I'm not dating anyone. For God's sakes, my studies pretty much prevent me from doing that, I've got so much. Kentaro winced, his displeasure clear. Yeah, I remember how much work I got saddled with in my first year. Hey, who did you get for a homeroom teacher? Mr. Aizawa. Immediately, Kentaro's complexion became very pale, even with his tanned skin. You had him too, right? Sis, I am so sorry. Ice Age placed a hand on his sister's arm, his dour mood darkening the whole room. If I had known you'd gotten Aizawa, I would have pulled way back on the teasing. Please tell me he hasn't expelled anyone yet, because he did that with my class in our first year. But Keita shook her head. Well, yeah, he threatened us with expulsion, but we all passed fairly easily. Kentaro's jaw dropped like an anvil. You all passed. What the hell, I was barely able to pass my test. Ochako gave a simple shrug. Just lucky, I guess. He even told us that the threats were a natural deception to get us to do better. No, Kentaro said bluntly, shaking his head in disbelief. No, there's no way that he'd do that. Aizawa literally expelled half of my class after they performed poorly on the test. That made the students' eyes widen considerably. Yeah, but you wanna know the crazy part? He actually brought them back a couple of weeks later. Said something about it being a test of resolve or something to help us be better heroes. You're kidding, right? Kyoka asked. Wish I was. Kentaro put a hand to his chin, scratching thoughtfully. This could mean a number of things. Either 1, he's pitying you, which I doubt. 2, he was told by Principal Nezu that he couldn't do that anymore. Or 3, a small smirk came to Ice Age's face at the last thought. Hee, old man Eraser's gone soft. The teens all eyed one another warily. They were pretty certain he was still talking about the same person who made them do gymnastics on top of a climbing wall, while having to fend off drones in gym class. Are you sure you're talking about the same guy, dude? Eijiro asked. Yeah, pretty sure Aizawa is far from soft. Denki agreed. Kentaro quickly clarified his meaning. Oh, I don't expect Shota Aizawa of all people to go soft overnight, but maybe he's been teaching for so long that his edges have been worn out. Ha ha ha. Kentaro was so busy talking and laughing that he failed to notice the door opening behind him, and the 9 students from 1A felt their stomachs drop at who came in. Ha, oh man, wait till my old classmates hear about this. Erase your head, from brooding hard-ass to weird but caring uncle. Ha ha ha, snap. HMPH. MMMPH. I'm sorry, Kiryu, what was that you were saying? Aizawa said as he stepped in, his hair sticking on end as his eyes glowed behind his bandages. Gah, Mr. Aizawa, sir. Ice Age fell to his knees and bowed in respect, all while Aizawa's scarf was still wrapped around his head. I am so sorry for talking about you behind your back. I meant no disrespect. Is that so? Aizawa narrowed his eyes, though kept them open enough to where the red-eyed glare didn't cease. Am I just supposed to believe that when you and your friends did it every single day while you went here? At that point, Kentaro began to visibly cower, bowing his head more and more apologetically as unintelligible gibberish came from his mouth. Eraserhead sighed and pulled his scarf back, blinking his tired eyes and freeing the hero. HMPH, you know, I taught you better than this. Last I heard, the Pleistocene hero had a lot more confidence and integrity than this. Kentaro's expression became soured as he stood up. HMPH, well, pardon me if I still have some lingering trauma from when I had you in homeroom. Aizawa shook his head, deciding to change the subject. I've heard you've been doing well for yourself, though. Doing your hero work in California, that's impressive, especially with how high the crime rate there is nowadays. The fur-clad man gave a shrug. Yeah, it's not easy, but I've managed to hold my own pretty well. I've been considering going solo and opening my own agency, actually. Impressive, I wish you all the best, Kentaro. Aizawa bowed his head before shifting his attention to his current students. And you all. The 9 kids all abruptly stood at attention, only for Eraserhead to wave them off. Relax, you're fine. I just wanted to say that you've all performed pretty good so far, and I expect you to keep it up in the final round. He went back toward the door as he kept speaking. The finals are where all of the talent scouts and pros will really be judging you on your combat skills, so keep that in mind. I'll see you all in the classroom after the closing ceremonies, understood? Yes, Mr. Aizawa. Everyone echoed. Good. As Aizawa went through the door, he gave his students one last nod before leaving, which is when the 9 kids all breathed a heavy sigh. Ochako leaned against the wall, taking a deep breath. Oh wow, that was really unexpected. Denki ran his fingers through his hair. I know, right, I was expecting him to criticize our performance or something. Well, glad that didn't happen. Keita wiped the nervous sweat from her brow, only to then see her brother with his jaw almost to the floor. Aniki. You okay? Ice Age almost seemed to be mentally broken as he kept trying to process what he just saw. Do you realize what just happened? That's probably the most encouraging that I've heard Eraserhead ever be. He wagged his finger at the group. There's no doubt about it, I think he likes you guys, much more than he's liked any class in the past. You really think so? Momo tilted her head. He still seemed rather blunt with his compliments. But they were compliments nonetheless. Kentaro stressed. My class was lucky to get a simple, good job, from him back in the day. Consider yourselves lucky, that's all I'll say. Izuku and the others were left rather stunned by the revelation. Could it be that the homeroom teacher they once saw as no nonsense actually had a soft spot somewhere inside him? Wow, we should probably never call Mr. Aizawa out on this. The Greenette was met with a chorus of agreements before he noticed the time. Well, we've still got an hour left before the break is over. What do you think we should do? I dunno about you, but I'm gonna get in some last-minute psych up before we get out there. Eijiro grinned as he balled a fist, hardening it up. I wanna make sure I'm at my peak before I get out there. Tenya hummed, concurring with the redhead. Indeed, let's make sure that we're mentally and physically prepared for what may happen out there. Aniki, where will you be watching from? Keita beamed at her brother. I hope you've got some good seats, because this is gonna be intense. Kentaro gave a laugh, setting a hand on his sister's shoulder. I don't doubt that, sis. Don't worry, I've got good seats on the south side of the stadium. I'll be cheering for ya, so keep your ears out. He sent her a small wink. I'll probably be the loudest out there when your turn comes up, after all. The Soro Parts user winced a little at that. Just try not to do anything embarrassing, K. Hey, and pull a dad. Nah, don't worry, I won't do that. Ice Age gave Keita one last hug and a pat on the back. Do your best out there, K. And whether you come in first place or not, know that we'll all be proud of you. Thanks, but I'm still going for the gold. Oh, I know. Kentaro broke the embrace and nudged his head toward the door. Now go on, get out of here. As he and the students all left the room, Ice Age gave one last, break a leg. Before they all went their separate ways. Once another hour passed, things were finally getting back underway. The stadium had been refilled to capacity and Present Mike was back in his usual spot, announcing the action at the top of his lungs. Get those foam fingers in the air, sports fans. It's almost time for the last round. But before that, good news for everyone who didn't make the finals. Since this is a sports festival, we've prepared some super fun side games everyone can participate in. He then brought everyone's attention toward the cavalcade of women who were on the sidelines, all wearing UA cheer uniforms while doing a routine. We've even brought in cheerleaders from America to get your blood pumping. As the students made their way onto the field, several lingering eyes couldn't help but glance over to the cheerleaders, including a certain electric blondes. Man, oh man, they really didn't spare any expense. Denki smiled mirthfully, only to get an earphone jack straight to his elbow. Oh come on, I didn't say anything bad. But you were thinking it. Kyoka said pointedly. Weren't you? Hey, I'm respectfully looking. Denki pointed toward the other students around them, where several guys and girls alike were also staring at the cheerleaders. What are you gonna do? Jab your jacks into all of them. Kyoka pursed her lips and huffed, rolling her eyes. Whatever, it's still not really polite. Once the cheerleaders brought their routine for a halt for the time being, Present Mic continued. Have fun competing in the side games, everyone. Once they're over, the 16 students from the top 4 teams will be duking it out one-on-one in a tournament-style competition. On the big screen, the bracket for the tournament appeared, with black spaces where the competitors would soon be displayed. I promise you're not gonna wanna miss these epic matchups. Up on the main stage, Midnight was holding a rather colorful box, filled with tiny pieces of paper that held the students' fates. Come closer and draw lots to see who you're up against. Then enjoy the pleasure of the recreational games before we start. The 16 finalists have the option of participating in those activities or sitting out to prepare for battle. I'm sure you all want to conserve your stamina, after all. She began moving over to Izuku, Kyoka, Mei and Keita. I'll begin with the first place team. Excuse me. Much to everyone's surprise, Ojiro raised his hand, the blonde-tailed young man wearing a remorseful expression. Sorry, but I'm withdrawing. A collective gasp went through the crowd of students, his own classmates doing a double take. Ojiro, no way. Izuku uttered, stunned by the news. But this is a rare chance for you to get scouted. Tenya insisted. Ojiro pursed his lips as he brought his hand down, balling it into a fist. It just wouldn't be right. Like I told you guys, I barely remember anything from the cavalry battle until the very end of it. His eyes met the gazes of his classmates, where they could see the seriousness within them. I know this is a great opportunity. I wish I could take advantage of it, but my conscience won't let me. Izuku reached forward, hoping to convince him otherwise. Just think about this for a sec. I have, okay. Ojiro retorted, taking them all off guard. Everyone gave their all in round 2, but I was just someone's puppet. No way. I don't wanna advance if I only barely remember how I got here. It wouldn't be fair, and my pride won't let me. From the back of the group, Toru Hagakure pushed forward, the invisible girl imploring Ojiro to reconsider. Ojiro, you're making way too much out of this. Just kill it in the finals and prove you should be here. Yeah, exactly. Mina agreed. I didn't do much in the battle either. And heck, Ochako's still. Guys, don't. Ochako cut in, her own voice filled with conviction. This situation is not the same. Ojiro and I both have our own reasons for wanting to compete in the sports festival, and I respect his decision to withdraw. Her eyes glanced down sadly. In all honesty, if the situation were different for me, I'd probably consider doing so myself. She brought her eyes up and smiled at the tailed boy. But I do get where you're coming from, Ojiro. You do what you feel is right. She gave him a thumbs up. And I promise, I'll fight for both of us. Ojiro sent a smile to the brunette, appreciative of her understanding. Thank you, Uraraka. I know you must have a lot riding on this, so best of luck. Just then, another voice piped up over in 1B's group. It belonged to a short, somewhat stocky boy with short, pale blue hair, his tone just as nervous as his features seemed to be. Izuku and the others recognized him as the third kid who was on Shinso's team. Narengeki Shota from Class 1B, he introduced himself. I think I should withdraw for the exact same reason. Regardless of how strong I am, this isn't how I wanted to get here. To me, it would go against the values of the festival to advance without earning my spot. SNFF, listen to these guys, Eijiro sniffled, holding back tears of joy. They're just so manly. Yeah, but would they even be allowed to withdraw? Denki asked. Next to him, Fumikage Tokiyami crossed his arms, the bird-headed boy bringing his attention back to Midnight. Who can say? Only Miss Midnight is able to pass judgment on that. After a few seconds of consideration, however, Midnight had her answer ready. This kind of talk is incredibly naive, my boys. All of a sudden, a wide smile came to her face, her cheeks flushing a slight shade of pink as she raised her flag toward them. That turns me on. Shota, Ojiro, you're withdrawn. Pretty much every student in attendance were thinking the same thing. Did she just say that turns her on? Now, let's see, we'll need to move up 2 students from the 5th place cavalry team so we have enough contestants. Seeing that Midnight had her focus on her group, Itsuka Kendo was quick to point something out. We were frozen most of the time, Miss Midnight. Honestly, we barely did anything in the cavalry battle. Isn't that right, girls? The ponytailed redhead shifted her eyes toward the rest of her team, who all gave affirming nods. That being the case, you should choose from the team who kept fighting until the end, Team Tetsu. Tetsutsu himself was stunned by his class rep's words, as were Abara Shiozaki and the rest of his team. Kendo, are ya sure? Hey, I'm not doing this as a favor. Itsuka shrugged. It's just fair. You guys gave it your all, so you deserve it. Abara was quick to bow to her friend graciously for the support, while Tetsu seemed to be on the verge of tears. Seriously, you guys, thank you. The heavy metal quirk user shouted to the heavens. Once things were all straightened out, Tetsu and Abara were given a good luck send-off by their teammates as they joined the 14 other finalists. And so, Tetsu and Shiozaki of Class 1B have advanced to the finals. Midnight announced, bringing the box of lots back up. Now, if everyone would please come up and choose a lot, we can get things underway. The students all did as Midnight asked, and once everyone had a lot, Midnight whipped her flog up to the screen. Now, pay close attention, my darlings. Here are the brackets. Each end of the tournament brackets on screen began displaying the names of the students, revealing who they'd be going up against, and to say that Eijiro and Tetsu were left stunned was an understatement. They were going up against each other. Seriously. The boys echoed as they butted heads. How does this keep happening? Kata's eyes widened as she saw that her and Mina would be going up against one another, sending the acid user a smirk. Well, now this is gonna be fun. Ready for me to whoop ya with my tail, Mina? PSH, please. I'ma melt your butt, Mina countered. Denki glanced over to Abara, the thorny vine-haired girl being the one he'd be facing off with. Not a bad first battle. Wonder what she can do with that hair of hers. Shoto noticed that he was on the same bracket side as Midoriya, though it would be a while before they'd potentially get to one another. He could be my third match. You have to make it to the semi-finals, Midoriya, so I can beat you with one hand. Izuku himself was smiling at the prospect laid before him. His bracket and Tenya's bracket were side by side with one another, the latter being paired up with Hatsume. He craned his head up to the engine user and pointed toward the sign. Hey, Iida, look. We could be each other's second match. I know, it's exhilarating. Tenya pumped a fist. Hopefully I will be able to meet you there, oh. The spectacle-wearing boy adjusted his glasses, making sure he was seeing things correctly. Midoriya, you might have a problem, however. Yeah, I know. Izuku affirmed, seeing exactly who he'd be going up against. It was Shinso. He could see the wild-haired boy smirking off to the side, though Izuku made sure to not make eye contact. It was then that he remembered Shinso's words from a few weeks back when he came to 1A's classroom. If any of us do well in the sports festival, the teachers can decide to transfer us to the hero course. The one for all inheritor bit his lip. That had to be Shinso's ultimate goal, and it was obvious that he was willing to do whatever it took to get it. His thoughts were interrupted, though, when Mei suddenly popped up next to Tenya, spooking him nearly out of his shoes. Heya, Specs. Ah, Hatsume. What is the meaning of this? Tenya flinched, rather comically so. Looks like we'll be going head-to-head in the first round. Mei's eyes gleamed with anticipation. I can't wait. Oh, yes. Of course, I'm looking forward to it as well. That's good, because I've got something special for you. Mei grabbed a hold of Tenya's arm and began pulling him against his will, much to his confusion. Come on, this way. All Izuku could think as his friend got pulled away was, oh boy, she's got something planned for him, I can tell. He shook his head and set his attention over to Kyoka, who seemed to be staring up at the screen worriedly. Huh, Kyoka, you okay? Wordlessly, the punk rocker brought her hand up and pointed to the screen, and Izuku's eyes widened when he saw. Kyoka had been matched up with Momo. Oh, gosh. Izuku could see that the raven-haired girl in question wasn't too far away either. A worried hand clenched over her chest as she too stared at the board. Of course, facing off with your friend right off the bat would be pretty difficult. Admittedly, Izuku was excited at the prospect of engaging in battle with Iida, but he could understand why Kyoka and Momo were more hesitant. They had gotten pretty close since the start of the year, even faster than him and Iida. He suspected that Momo getting dragged into the big Autobot secret helped a lot with that, too. Kyoka, just a sec, celery stick. The punk rocker cut him off, taking a deep breath as she smiled to him. I appreciate the help, but I've gotta handle this on my own. Isuku wore a serious expression, as if to ask, are you sure? But, with one resolute nod, Isuku relented and returned her grin. Alright, if you say so. Good luck. Thanks. Kyoka spun on her heel and headed straight for Momo, the rich girl doing a double take at how fast she came over. Yo Momo, listen, I've got no doubt you and I are feeling pretty much the same way right now. Hesitant, nervous, afraid of what might happen if either one of us wins. Momo asked in a rapid-fire way. Kyoka confirmed that without question. All that and more. But I just want to say this right now. She extended her hand toward her best friend and opponent, giving her a wink. Win or lose, let's make sure that nothing changes. Friends to the end. We both wanna win and leave a good impression, so I say let's give 'em something that they'll all remember, K. Momo blinked in awe, feeling as if a huge weight had just been removed from her shoulders. Of course, Kyoka was definitely still scared to face her, just as she was, but at the same time, she seemed very happy, too. Kyoka, I knew I made a good choice in being your friend. Momo put on a smile and extended her hand, grasping Kyoka's in a gentle shake. Of course, we'll put on a fantastic showing. May the best woman win. As the girls beamed happily at one another, Isuku also felt his lips tug up into a small grin. It's awesome to see good sportsmanship, especially between friends. As he thought this, though, he heard Bakugo say something that irked him and many others within earshot. Uraraka. Katsuki tilted his head at the name of his upcoming opponent. Who the hell is that? Izuku could feel his eye twitch at the sound of his friend being disrespected. Of course, Katsuki didn't know the names of anyone in Class 1A other than his, so this was to be expected. But still, the sight of Uraraka's jaw-dropped disbelief at the comment definitely left Izuku annoyed with the explosive blonde. And then there was Keita and Kyoka's expressions of pure rage. That's it, I'm a kill, I am. Kyoka bellowed. Get in line, Keita said as she rolled up her sleeves. Ah, girls, stop. Izuku frantically jumped in front of the ladies, holding up his hands to stop them before anyone noticed. This is not the time or place to confront Kachan. Momo also did the same, giving Kyoka a serious look. Midoriya's right. If you start a fight here, you could get pulled from the competition. She whispered harshly. Keita's fists were shaking in frustration while Kyoka snarled, both of them glaring at Bakugo as he sauntered off. Grr, he makes me so mad. Keita stomped her foot. I freaking hate bullies like him who don't give a crap about people. Girls, please, Uraraka said as she herself went over to them, giving a reassuring smile. I'm fine, really. I agree, Bakugo's a pretty big jerk, but I'm not gonna let some backhanded comment deter me from this match. Kyoka and Keita were rather surprised and impressed by the brunette's mature handling of the situation, which served to bring them down from their rage-fueled highs. Ha, you're right, Chaco. Keita lowered her head in defeat. Sorry about that. Yeah, Izuku was right, this isn't the time or place. Kyoka nodded, taking a deep breath. So, you're in the final first round match with that asshat, huh? You think you'll be okay? Ochako balled a fist, her smile becoming slightly shaky. To be honest, I don't know, but I'm gonna give it my all, I promise you. Before either of them could say anything, Present Mike's voice came blaring through again. Alright, now that the battles have been assigned, let's press pause for a momentary interlude. Before the battles begin, it's time for some pulse-pounding side games. The side games didn't take too long, if Ochako were being completely honest, only lasting about 50 minutes. But what an entertaining 50 minutes it was. There had been a short track race, a ball rolling competition, and even scavenger hunt where people went around searching for random objects. Even the people in the stands got involved on that one, handing out objects that the teens were searching for. However, the winner of that competition was no contest, Itsuka Kendo of Class 1B. She had been assigned to find and retrieve a perverse person, and she came back with Monoma, literally holding him in her hands, which she could make really big with her quirk. Trust me, this counts, she had said, getting a laugh out of everyone at Monoma's expense. But, after that, the teens went up to their class's own personal stands as Smintos began working on creating the battlefield. There, they would sit watch the battles unfold, all while the competitors would wait for their turns. The only exceptions were Isuku, who had to make his way to the entrance tunnel as he was the first match, as well as Bakugo and Shoto, both of whom had gone off by themselves somewhere for the time being. When Class 1A arrived at their seats, however, they were met with a surprising sight. Ochako, Tenya, Momo, Mina, Kyoka, Denki and Kirishima all did a double take at the sight of their Autobot allies all sitting in their seating area. Brian, Buck, Sadie, Stella, Sid, Sunny and Jeff all craned their heads around the second the students arrived, the latter giving them a wave. "Yo. What up, Class 1A? Glad y'all could make it. About time, too." Sid smirked, jerking his thumb toward the center of the stadium. "Man, you guys as excited about these battles as us." Sorry, but, WHO are you?" Sato asked, the big-lipped boy scratching his spiky hair. Toru raised her arm, presumably pointing toward Brian. "Hey, wait, I recognize him. He's All Might's intern, remember? He was at our first class with All Might." Suyu placed a finger to her chin, recognizing him as well. "Oh, yeah, he is. Good to see you, Ribbit." Brian smiled and waved back to her. "Okay, but does anyone recognize those other people?" Hantashiro tilted his head. Tokiyami crossed his arms, raising a brow as Kota shook his head silently. "Can't say that I do. Just who are you all, anyway?" "Wait, I think I saw them earlier." Shoji piped up, the multi-armed young man shifting his eyes over to Kyoka and the others. "Jiro, weren't they sitting at your guys' table earlier? Do you know them?" Oh, well, yeah," Kyoka scratched the back of her head, still thrown for a loop by the Autobots' presence. "Ya see, it's kinda complicated." "Not really, Kyoka. It's actually fairly easy to explain." Sadie stood up, bowing apologetically to the students. "But I am very sorry to all of you. We completely forgot to introduce ourselves to the rest of you earlier, didn't we?" She placed a hand over her chest. "My name is Sadie, and we are the personal trainers of your classmates over there." She waved her hand over to their charges, who still seemed pretty nervous about the whole thing. "Wait a sec, personal trainers." Toru whipped around and pointed at her fellow classmates. "I knew it. I knew there had to be some reason you guys were all going somewhere after school. Those cars must have been theirs, right?" Yeah, exactly." Ochako said anxiously. "Sorry we couldn't tell you guys about it, but these guys are a bit secretive." That made Suyu even more curious, though. "Ribbit, what do you mean by secretive, Ochako?" Buck stood up, prepared to give his own explanation. "What she means to say is, and you can't say this to anyone, by the way, is that we're actually undercover heroes from America." He said this as softly as possible so that no one in the neighboring stands could hear them, but nonetheless, the students were still left stunned. "We're here with our team leader on assignment and we're currently staying at All Might's Hero Agency." He nudged his head over to the 7 teenagers. "The reason why we didn't have any of them tell you about us is because we didn't want to make it seem like favoritism on All Might's part. We may be staying at his agency, but I can assure you he has nothing to do with this training." Of course, all of that was a bold-faced lie, but it was a convincing one, as the rest of the 1A students all seemed to believe it. "Whoa, seriously?" Zero whispered. "That's so cool." Sato agreed, craning his head over to the 7 charges of the Autobots. "Man, you guys in Midoriya are super lucky, being trained by undercover heroes." "Ahaha. Yeah, we sure are." Mina laughed, trying to keep the act going. "They're taking the bait hook line and sinker. Sorry guys, but the Autobot secret has to be kept up." Just then, before anyone could say anything else, Present Mike piped back up, "Hey, sports fans. Are ya ready? After all the action you've already witnessed, it's time for the real battles to begin. Can ya feel the excitement?" Stella waved the kids over toward the seats, urging them to sit down. Oh, the tournament's about to begin. Come on kids, take your seats, because I have a feeling this is going to be quite exciting." Everyone did as they were instructed, sitting in front of the row of Autobot holoforms as their gazes went down to the completed battle arena. "Hey," Kyoka whispered over to Jeff, raising a brow. "Where's Orion?" "Oh, he stepped on down to give Izuku a few more supportant words." Jeff said with a knowing grin. "He'll be back soon enough. Down below at the eastern entrance, however, Isuku himself was trying to collect himself for what was about to happen. The first 2 rounds had gone fairly well, all things considered, but this third round was where he'd really be tested. Every eye in the country and several around the world were all paying attention, so now was the time to leave his mark. Our competitors are on their own now. Present Mike's voice reminded him, making Isuku feel trepidatious knowing that he'd be going solo from here on. Sometimes, heroes only have themselves to rely on. Heart, skill, strength, wisdom, courage. They'll have to use all of these things to rise to the top. Easier said than done, the Greenette thought, squeezing his fist tighter and tighter. Hey! Isuku gave a small gasp and whipped himself around, being met by Toshinori and Optimus walking toward him at a casual pace. Sorry I haven't said hi. The symbol of peace said with a thumbs up. But you've been doing spectacular, young Midoriya. You've harnessed one for all quite well. Indeed, Isuku, we've been quite impressed with your performance so far. Orion grinned, though I suppose that should come as no surprise. Why yes, well, Isuku began, his sights going back to his fist. To tell the truth, I'm still worried about using it. I've been careful with it so far because I don't want to hurt anyone here, but now, I suppose I don't have much of a choice when it comes to the finals. Toshinori nodded in understanding. Well, I can see why you feel that way. They are your classmates after all. He reached forward, placing a supportive hand on Izuku's shoulder. But don't worry. Since you can only use about 8 or 10% of one for all, you probably can't blow him in half or anything, maybe a few broken bones at the very least. Orion raised a finger, though it would be preferred if you didn't break their bodies. Right, 8 or 10%. Izuku lowered his head in contemplation. That was still so little in comparison to All Might's full power. It only reinforced his feelings on how he was even able to get this far. I guess I really have only been getting by because of luck and my friends helping me out, GUH. Without warning, Toshinori gave a double chop to Izuku's head and neck, trying to knock some sense into him. Would ya stop browbeating yourself and actually listen to what people are telling you? All I wanna hear you say is that you'll do your best, damn it. Izuku stared at the number 1 hero in stunned silence as he spoke to him. There's no such thing as luck, and you're never gonna become the hero you wanna be if you believe in something like that. The reason you're here is because you made it happen. Sure, you had help along the way, but you've still pulled your own weight, no one's had to pull it for you. Incredibly wise words. Orion agreed, reaching out to pat Izuku on the head. Young man, you have unbelievable power that you are only just beginning to harness, but you have so much more than that to contribute, as you've shown in this festival. You are a great tactician, and have shown remarkable leadership potential as well. At that point, Izuku began to get choked up, not quite believing what they were saying. Listen, whenever you're scared or nervous about a fight, remember this. All Might buffed up to his heroic form, smiling and giving his protege a thumbs up. Just try and deal with it by smiling. You've made it this far, young Midoriya, and that take great talent that you do have, whether you want to admit it or not. The hero pointed out the entry gate up toward the stands. Don't forget, we're all watching and rooting for you, including the friends that you're competing against. They want you to proceed as much as anyone else here after all. Izuku looked between his 2 teachers and then out toward the gate, seeing the battlefield ready and waiting for him. The countless people cheering indeed made him nervous, but now, he could also see that those were the same people who were cheering for him since the end of the first round. Slowly but surely, he put on a smile. It was a nervous one, yet also a happy one all the same. He turned back to his mentors, bowing to them gratefully. Thank you both, so much. You're welcome. Poof. Now get out there and break a leg. Again, not literally. Orion remarked. That got a laugh out of Izuku before he went toward the entry gate, ready to start the last stretch of the festival. Alright, audience, let's cut to the good stuff and not delay these finals any longer. Present Mike's words got a big reaction. Finally, after nearly 3 hours of waiting, the tournament could truly begin. On the big screen, the match graphic appeared, showing a neutral-faced Shinso and nervous Midoriya. Let's welcome our first fighters. Whoa, he looks kinda scared in that picture, doesn't he? It's Izuku Midoriya from the hero course. With that being his cue, Izuku walked out and made his way toward the battle stage, still wearing his smile. Versus Hitoshi Shinso from General Studies, who really hasn't done much to really stand out yet. From the other side of the stadium, Shinso emerged, keeping his bored expression. Both competitors stepped onto the battle arena, sticking to their opposite sides as Midnight took the referee's position on the side. The rules are simple: immobilize your opponent or force them out of the ring. Mike explained in his own over-the-top way. You can also win by getting the other person to cry uncle. Bring on the injuries, because we've got healers on standby. So put your morals aside and don't be afraid to play dirty. He coughed into his hand as he added, but of course, not life-threatening crap, folks, it's not allowed. Real heroes use their powers to throw villains in jail, not kill them. Not far from midnight, Smintas was also still present, having made a cement chair for himself to sit in. I'll stop anyone who tries to be too rough, he said with a friendly wave. Izuku took a deep breath, ready to get started after loosening up his hands a bit. But then, so you can just give up, huh? The Greenette's eyes shot up to Shinso across the ring, his unrelenting stare boring into him. In a way, this is a test of how strong your spirit is. If you know what you want your future to hold for you, you can't worry about what other people think. Izuku wasn't too sure what he was getting at, until Shinso glanced up to 1A's seats. That monkey was going on about his pride earlier. But I think he's an idiot for throwing away his chance like that. In that respect, the Gravity Girl is a lot smarter than he is. The Greenette could feel his insides begin to churn in discomfort. So that was it. Shinso was trying to get under his skin to psyche him out. But Izuku kept his serious demeanor. Well, I won't let it happen. Ready, begin. Midnight raised her hand into the air, signaling the start of the battle. But I have to say, you've got interesting tastes when it comes to partners, Midoriya. This remark made Izuku's eyes widen, wondering what he meant. Honestly, Jiro probably wouldn't have been my first choice. Nothing too remarkable about her other than her ear accessories. Now that was definitely getting on Izuku's nerves, and Shinso could see it in his eyes. Of course, Shinso didn't mean any of that, but he also knew that pulling out the big guns would work. But hey, Kiryu and Hatsume definitely balance things out. Izuku Midoriya, who would have guessed that you'd be a pie? Don't you dare finish that sentence. Izuku snarled at the implication. Shinso could insult him all he wanted, but to even suggest that those three were like that was. Everything stopped. At least for Izuku, anyway. He came to a sudden halt as his eyes glazed over, his vision becoming hazy and dim. His brain was in a fog, and he could no longer control his body movements. It was then that he realized, everything that Shinso said was all just to get him to talk. And it worked. Damn it, I screwed up. That's it, I win, Shinso said simply. Up in Class 1A's seats, everyone was completely aghast at what had just happened. Somehow, someway, Shinso had gotten Izuku to talk, and those in the know about the former's quirk were immediately taken aback. But none more so than Kyoka. She had heard everything, and her emotions were going a mile a minute. She was shocked, upset, frustrated, and even a bit angry. Of course, what Shinso was implying about her and the other girls was part of the source, and his comments served to make her feel even more self-conscious about herself. But the fact that he'd stooped to so low just to get Izuku to talk to him was what really got her nettled. Is he seriously that committed to winning? Huh, hey, what's the dealio? Present Mike asked, serving to break the tension just a little. It's the first match. It should start off with a bang. The fight's just begun, but Izuku Midoriya is as solid as a statue. What the, he's completely frozen. Shiro exclaimed. The heck just happened? Sato added. Ojiro shot out of his seat, his hands flying to his head. Gah, I warned him not to say anything. Ochako and Tenya also stood up, the girl cupping her hands around her mouth to amplify her call. Come on, Deku. Don't give up. Get moving. You cannot possibly be defeated this easily. Tenya pressed as well. Keita leaned over to Kyoka, her eyes still focused worriedly on Izuku. Kyo, could you pick up on what Shinso said? What did he say that got Midoriya so angry? I don't know. The crowd's jumbling everything up for me. That was another lie, but she had a feeling that Keita wouldn't be too happy if she knew the truth. But whatever it is, it must have gotten under Izuku's skin pretty bad. She shot up out of her seat and screamed as loud as she could, "Izuku! Snap out of it!" In the announce booth, present Mike was just as baffled as almost everyone else in the stadium. Hitoshi Shinso seems to have Midoriya completely stunned. Could this be his quirk at work? If so, then this is a major turn of events that no one could have anticipated. Just another example of why the entrance exams aren't logical. Mike's head snapped to his co-host in confusion. Huh, what d'ya mean? Eraserhead pulled up 2 papers that he had printed out earlier, containing Izuku and Hitoshi's student profiles. Since we're onto the individual matches, I had some info compiled about our final competitors. His tired eyes focused onto Shinso down below. Hitoshi Shinso failed the Hero Course practical exam. Since he also applied for general studies, he probably figured that would happen. His quirk is incredibly strong, but that entrance test consisted of fighting foe villains, robots. It gave a huge advantage to those who had physical superpowers they could show off. His brow furrowed at the sound of this very familiar scenario. Because of this, Shinso never stood a chance at passing. Present Mike's eyebrows rose up in realization, having flashbacks to his and Eraser's school days. This Shinso kid, he sounds a lot like, oh. He inwardly smirked as he put his focus back on the action. He reminds ya a lot of yourself, huh, Eraser. So, here we are. Shinso muttered, his voice being the only thing Izuku could hear at the moment. You're lucky to have been so blessed, Izuku Midoriya. He raised his head ever so slightly, giving his ultimate order, now turn around and walk out of bounds like a good little hero. Sure enough, Izuku followed Hitoshi's instructions to the letter, much to the dismay of his friends. The Autobots were beginning to panic, with Brian silently flailing around and shaking Sid by the shoulders. Bree, stop. I'm gonna get sick. Gah. Izuku, what the hell are you doing? Buck bellowed, balling his fists in frustration. Wake the frag up already. Stella was fidgeting in her seat, shaking anxiously. He can't walk out of the ring, he'll lose the match. Sadie simply covered her eyes in terror. I can't watch. Tell me when it's over. Back down in the entryway, even Toshinori and Orion were left flabbergasted at what was happening. Their protege, with his eyes in a complete haze, was lumbering slowly toward the boundary line like a zombie. It was unsettling, and both men were doing all they could to get Izuku to come to his senses. What are you doing, kid? Toshi hollered. Jeer back in there and show him what you're made of. Izuku, you must wake up. Orion encouraged. Remember what we told you, you've arrived here under your own power, so you must use that power to get yourself out of this. Fight though it. But Izuku couldn't stop. He couldn't even hear the sound of any of his friends' voices. All he could hear were the orders of Shinso echoing in his head, as well as his own footsteps. My body, it's moving on its own. I feel like my brain is full of fog. I can't concentrate. Through his blurred vision, he could see he was nearing the edge of the arena, which made his fear grow. No, not like this. Gotta stop, damn it. I fell for it, even Ojiro warned me. I'm an idiot, this is all my fault. As much as he wished he could move a part of his body, he just couldn't, no matter how much he tried to force it. I'm going to lose, it's all over. Even though so many people are counting on me, everyone is watching. Everyone. However, in the heat of the moment, something happened. Izuku's clouded vision suddenly was met by a massive glowing light coming through the entrance tunnel, before then being darkened again. As his focus was brought to the tunnel, he saw something that nearly made his heart stop. Gathered together were 8 shadowy figures, all of them staring at him with sharp, glowing golden eyes. The one down on the lower left was particularly familiar, as that was where All Might was standing, and the figure matched his silhouette perfectly. The figures covered up Optimus Holoform completely, however, though what came next served to stun him to his very core. He saw another figure rise up from behind all of the others. At first, he thought this was Optimus, but it soon became apparent that wasn't the case. Whatever this figure was, it was humanoid, but had a rather smooth head, appearing to have no distinguishable silhouette at all. But what it did have, were a pair of circular, bright red eyes that seemed to stare directly into his soul. These features definitely served to separate it from the rest of the figures. What is that thing? Izuku shuddered in his mind. Some sort of monster. Whatever it was, it didn't seem to have any malice behind its gaze, even though it was intimidating. Much to his surprise, the red-eyed figure craned its head down, its sights focusing on Izuku's left hand. And then, all at once, the silhouettes dissipated as a small surge of One for All's power began flowing into his fingers. What is this? Even with a quirk like this, I have my own dreams of becoming a hero. Shinso stated, watching as Izuku went to step over the boundary line. So, lose for me. What he failed to notice, though, was that Izuku's pointer and middle fingers were glowing red with power, before he flicked them. Boom! With that simple motion, a powerful gust of wind was kicked up, blowing through the entire stadium and taking Shinso by surprise. What's this? Midoriya stopped just in time. It was true. Izuku was back up and running, even though 2 of his fingers were now broken thanks to that flick. Up in the stands, Class 1A and the Autobots were all elated by the sight, especially the Greenette's friends. That's the way to do it. Tenya shouted. Woo, that just about killed me. Ojiro said as he slumped back in his seat. Yeah, I was about to freak out. Ochako placed a hand over her chest. Meanwhile, Kyoko was freaking out. Ah, yes. Yes, 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 yes. She pumped her fists up and down at Izuku's awesome move. She had no idea how he was able to break through Shinso's mind control, but she did not care. Do it, Izuku. Show that jerk who's boss. Back down on the battlefield, Shinso was having his own crisis of mind at what he had just seen. This had never happened before. No, impossible, you're not supposed to be able to fight back. He saw Izuku's head move slightly, knowing he had gotten his attention. There was still hope to get him to talk. What did you do? Immediately, Izuku clamped his hand over his mouth, keeping it shut tight. All the while, he pondered over what he had just experienced, trying to ignore the pain in his broken fingers. I'm the one who used One for All, but I'm not the one who moved my fingers just now. He could remember them vividly, the 8 figures with glowing yellow eyes, and the one at the top with bright red ones. It was like people I didn't know came into my mind. And for a second, it was clear. Could it be, he recalled that one of them resembled All Might in a way, and the realization hit him. Those people, were they the ones who cultivated this power? It made sense, but at the same time, something didn't add up. There should only have been 8 previous users of One for All. All Might had always told him that he was the 9th holder. So then, who was that red-eyed figure? And why was he different from all the others? And even then, did they save me? Is that even possible? Izuku's mind was flying with questions at that point, but unfortunately, they'd have to wait. How did you do that? Shinso yelled again, only for Izuku to stay silent. He won't answer, did he figure it out? As Izuku turned back toward him, though, Shinso could see a look in his eye that said otherwise, which made him sneer. No, he's known all along. That monkey must have told him. I have to get him to talk again. He put on an apologetic smile and tried a nicer approach. Hey, sorry about what I said about the girls earlier, it's obvious that I went way too far in trying to psyche you out. But hey, I had no idea you had so much power in your fingers. I'm kinda jealous, you know. I know what that jealousy's like. Izuku said in his mind as he charged forward to meet his challenge. I've been there. Thanks to the way my quirk works, I've always been at a big disadvantage. But someone as blessed as you wouldn't understand that. Shinso's voice had become bitter, which Izuku took note of as well. I get it. Even though he's right, I have been blessed. Shinso raised his voice the closer Izuku got to him. You're lucky enough to have a heroic quirk. It'll be so easy for you to reach your goal, URK. Izuku had finally closed the distance, pushing against Shinso to get him closer to the boundary line. I've been blessed by others. The images of his friends and mentors flashed in Izuku's mind, Autobot and human alike. That's why I'm here. I can't lose this. I'll do it for them. The purple-haired boy raised his fist. Say something, damn it. Whack. He punched Izuku's broken fingers, getting him to let go, but ultimately, the Greenette didn't even make a pained peep. You've gotta be kidding me. With another punch, Shinso socked Izuku right in the jaw, making him stumble closer to the boundary. Get out of this ring, you lucky brat. Shinso went to charge Izuku, but this would prove to be a fatal mistake. Izuku powered up his full cowling and leapt straight over Shinso, making the latter's eyes widen in shock at how fast that was. No, I refuse to let this be the end. The Quark inheritor repositioned himself in mid-air and thrust his arms backward, creating some momentum for him to come down, crashing down in a diving kick onto Shinso's back, making him fall straight out of the ring. Not by much, but enough to that his upper body was over the line. As Izuku landed, his nose beginning to bleed from that punch, Midnight raised her hand. Shinso is out of bounds. Midoriya advances to the next match. The crowd went absolutely ballistic, and Izuku himself had to take some time to process this. But, the moment he saw Toshinori and Orion giving him thumbs up, it finally settled in for him. He was moving on. Chapter 28, The First Bracket. Several thousands of light-years away from planet Earth, Megatron was walking through the hallowed halls of his Count Palace, having just returned from a meeting with some of his most tactically efficient soldiers. Namely, he had spoken mostly with Onslaught, one of his best and most capable generals. His combaticons had been tasked with flushing out whatever was left of the Autobot resistance in order to finally snuff them out, and for the most part, they had been highly effective in that assignment. However, as Autobots became more and more scarce, things hadn't become as easy. We know that there must be more of them, Lord Megatron. Onslaught had said, glaring at the holographic map of Cybertron as it pinpointed all of the locations where they had found Autobot scavengers. But they've become increasingly more difficult to tempt out of their hiding places. We suspect that they've gone further underground. Into the depths of the planet itself, Megatron had mused. Very well, I will have Shockwave provide you with the necessary resources to deal with such a task. The best scanners and drilling equipment we have. I hope to see ideal results, Onslaught, so do not fail me. After expressing their gratitude, Onslaught, Brawl, Vortex and Blastoff had went to prepare for their next assignment. Side note, find out how that blasted swindle scurried off-world. Next, though, Megatron would have to check in with his Decepticon scouts who had taken to the stars in search of energy to bring back to Cybertron. If the planet itself wouldn't provide energon, then they'd simply take what they'd need from others. However, just as he entered his throne room, he was greeted by the sight of his devoted scientist. Lord Megatron. Shockwave bowed, his single yellow optic glowing with every word. I have intercepted a transmission from our forces on Earth. Unicronus wishes to speak with you. Megatron's metal brow rose in intrigue. Unicronus, very well. Though I was about to contact the away teams to assess their recent gains. Please, my lord, allow me to do that for you. Shockwave bowed his head once more. From what Unicronus told me, he would like a bit more than just a moment of your time. I see. You may do as you see fit, Shockwave. You have my thanks. The Cycloptic Decepticon placed a hand over his chest before walking out of the room, showing his leader respect. With that, Megatron sat down on his throne and brought up the transmission, being greeted by the visage of Unicronus himself. Unicronus, to what do I owe the pleasure? Lord Megatron, sir. Unicronus saluted. I'm glad that you were able to answer. I wanted to tell you that the finals of these Earthlings, Sports Festival, were about to begin. It has been interesting so far. Megatron narrowed his optics. Is that so? What kind of interesting? Just then, of all bots, Nitra peeked out from behind Unicronus, which was impressive given his looming figure. Oh, you know, just the fact that the Autobots, little green-haired pipsqueak has managed to keep and stay in first place. No big deal. This earned a rather cold, scrutinizing glare from the Decepticon leader, leading the Magenta bot to realize that her sarcastic attitude had gotten the better of her. Lord Megatron, sir. The former gladiator sighed, giving Nitra his full focus. I will ignore your speaking out of turn, Agent Nitra, and instead return to the topic at hand. You're saying that the Autobots, ally has made it to the finals. Not just him, Unicronus asserted, but all 9 of them. That gave Megatron pause for a second. All of the Autobots' allies had made it to the final round. Either that was a coincidence or, they had trained them well. I see. But the question remains, he leaned forward slightly with an inquiring glare. Why did you feel the need to inform me? You are cataloging the festival, correct? Of course, we are, my lord. Anachronis affirmed. We simply thought you'd be interested to watch the finals live, in order to get a gauge on these humans firsthand. If anything, this just made Megatron sneer more. And why would I be interested, General? These finals consist of one-on-one battles between the students. Anachronis informed. They are competing in all-out combat, allowing their quirks to be on full display. Admittedly, as this information settled in, Megatron had to admit, that did intrigue him a little bit. After all, as someone who began as a simple gladiator within the deepest, most foul arenas in the pits of Kaon, he was no stranger when it came to combat. So you're telling me that these juvenile organics are going to be fighting one another for sport while ravenous spectators simply watch those younger than them break one another? Anachronis gave a nod, to which Megatron raised his chin. Well, I find it hard to say, no, to that. Ah, willing child endangerment. Nitra mused as she typed in a command on the console. Just when I thought these organics can't get any more screwed in the head. Within moments, the screen expanded to show all of the Decepticons within the dark side, much to Starscream's irritation. But then, another screen appeared, this one showing a live feed of the sports festival. There you are, Lord Megatron. Enjoy the show. Unfortunately, Megatron didn't have the best first impressions. Hey sports fans, are you ready? Gah. Megatron covered one of his audio receptors, pounding the arm of his throne with the other hand. What in the name of Primus is that? Oh, my apologies Lord Megatron. Starscream smirked, lowering the volume of the feed. That would be Present Mike, a hero who works at UA. Hyan is the announcer for this event. I hadn't realized I had it so loud, but admittedly, the previous event was fairly exciting. Of course, knowing Starscream, Megatron wasn't fooled so easily by his excuse. That had been done on purpose. Still, even with the volume lowered, that didn't stop him from thinking that Present Mike was annoying as he went over the rules of the finals. As he did, Megatron saw two children take the battlefield, a boy with green hair, and one with purple hair. Anachronis, is that the boy you spoke of? Indeed. Anachronis confirmed. Isuku Midoriya of Class 1A. HMPH, this organic whelp doesn't appear to be that threatening. Please, don't be fooled by his appearance, my lord. Anachronis warned. Believe me, he's stronger than he appears. Megatron hummed in contemplation. True, he had encountered his fair share of enemies whose appearances were deceiving, but still, such thin and small beings couldn't be that powerful. Though if these humans were capable of becoming powerhouses like this, All Might, that he had heard about, then that would make him reconsider. He focused back on the battle itself, or rather, lack thereof. After the purple-haired boy had said something to get a rise out of Isuku, the greenette had stopped and began turning around, per the boy's instructions. Eventually, the reasoning came to light as Present Mike explained that it was the work of a quirk. Brainwashing. That doesn't really make much sense, honestly. Skywarp commented. The heck is he doing at a hero school when something like that is totally villainous? PSH, search me. Swift shrugged. The moments passed, and as Izuku grew closer to the boundary line, Megatron could feel the gratification about to hit him. He knew it, this boy was nothing special, but then something happened. Megatron could see a brief glow down near the boy's hand before he flicked his fingers, and sent a huge pulse through the entire stadium, making the cameras shake. Whoa, what was that all about? Barricade asked. Dunno. But whatever it was, it seemed pretty powerful. Thundercracker noted. Megatron had to do a double take. How did that just happen? He could have sworn he just saw a huge buildup of energy in that child's fingers, and that single flick was enough to kick up a gust of wind that managed to knock him out of his mind-controlled state. Megatron could see that Izuku's fingers had been broken, no doubt from the force of that one flick. His body cannot handle his power, and yet, the gladiator watched as Izuku went charging toward Shinso, who was desperately trying to get him to talk again. He keeps going. The tyrant watched as the two boys scuffled, with Shinso punching Izuku in his broken fingers before going to push him out of the ring by force. However, right as he was about to reach him, Izuku's body began glowing with a green, sparking energy, before leaping up and over his opponent. The greenette then came flying down in a diving kick, pushing Shinso out of the ring and ending the battle. As the referee announced Izuku's victory, Megatron exhaled from his intakes, pondering what he had just seen. This boy's power, it is impeccable, he thought to himself. If this is the type of power that one of these humans is able to generate, then perhaps I was too hasty to dismiss this race's uses. The Decepticon leader placed his hand to his chin in contemplation. But if this is what a hero is capable of, then no doubt there must be villains that are equal or even greater in power. Megatron narrowed his optics with a grimace. They could pose a problem if I wished to bring Earth down under my heel as well. It was then that Unicronus spoke up, noticing Megatron's silence. My liege, I'm sorry if this battle wasn't to your liking. I was honestly expecting far more from. It's quite alright, General. Megatron reassured with a wave of the hand. In all honesty, this battle certainly helped to open my optics a bit. He furrowed his brow as the camera focused in on Izuku. If the Autobots insist on allying with these human heroes, then perhaps we may require some villainous allies of our own. Back on Earth, Hitoshi Shinso opened his eyes, his gaze directed up to the big blue sky. But he knew why he was staring straight up, and it frustrated him to no end. He grit his teeth and balled his hands into fists as he trembled there on the ground. Despite his best efforts, he had been beaten, as President Mike had been so eager to remind everybody. And with that expertly performed kick, we have our first victor of the finals. Class 1A's Izuku Midoriya. Granted, it wasn't the most exciting first match we've had here, but both of them fought bravely. Shinso glanced up to Izuku, expecting to see a victorious smile across the lucky bastard's face. But there was none. If anything, he seemed more exhausted than anything. And his eyes, they were staring down at him. Was that concern behind his gaze? No, couldn't be. Who would take time to be worried about him of all people? Shinso got up with a groan, going to the center of the ring where both opponents would show respect. But all the while, Shinso simply kept his head down, ashamed of his loss after coming so far. However, after bowing to him, Izuku said something that caught him off guard. Why do you want to be a hero? Shinso's eyes shot up in surprise, meeting the greenettes. What drives you? That gave Shinso pause, recalling all of the things he had heard his old classmates say in middle school. Wow, Shinso, imagine all of the cool stuff you could do controlling people. Yeah, you could do any bad thing you want. And no one would ever know it was you. The very thought made Shinso wince. Even if they were compliments on how powerful his quirk was, it still stung that people would assume he would do bad things with it. You can't help the things your heart longs for. Shinso stated as he turned away, leaving Izuku in the ring as he went toward his entry tunnel. I felt the same way. Izuku said to himself. Before inheriting One for All, I was just like him. But nothing I say is gonna make him feel better. But, as Shinso was about to walk through the tunnel, a voice caught his attention. You were awesome out there, Shinso. The purple-haired boy's eyebrows shot up, his head moving up to see his classmates from general studies all gathered around. In all honesty, he was shocked, especially since he hadn't devoted much time to getting to know them. But still. We're proud of you. One brunette girl said as she waved down to him. You didn't tell us you were that good. Another boy said. Yeah, you're the star of our program, cheered another. One larger boy with a rather big chin walked up and sent Shinso a thumbs up. I can't believe you put up such a great fight against the dud who's been in first place for the whole festival. He jerked his thumb back toward the other heroes spectating behind them. Listen to him up there. Shinso perked up his ears, and what he heard sent him into an even further state of shock. With a quirk like that, it'd be very simple to capture dangerous villains, said a lizard-like hero. Wish I had it. Next to the lizard man was another hero who Shinso recognized more, Ms. Joke. The orange bandana on her head and her teal hair were unmistakable, and this was one of the rare times where she was seen with her mask on. I can't believe they put him in general studies. The laughing hero lamented. Those idiots. Well, there are a ton of applicants each year. Another hero spoke up, this one wearing a very cool mask. Guess some people slipped through the cracks. Two heroes with gas mask-like heads were also conversing with one another about his performance. If only he had more combat experience, the blue one said. Yeah, I bet he would have dominated, replied the green one. What a waste. The big-chinned boy smiled down to Shinso in approval. Shinso, ya hear that? It's great. They think you're incredible. Shinso could feel his hands trembling again, though this time, for a much different reason. He was overwhelmed not by frustration, but joy. People were actually recognizing his quirk not for its more nefarious uses, but for how it could be used for good. He took a deep breath before addressing Isuku, though he didn't turn around. Depending on the results, they might transfer people into the hero course. Remember that. He clenched his fist in determination. Even if it didn't work out this time, I'm not giving up. I'll get onto the hero track and get certified. And then, I'll become a better pro than any of you. Isuku so desperately wanted to reaffirm Shinso's words. He himself was elated that the pros were praising Shinso's quirk, but at the same time, after that battle, he knew he should reply to Shinso in a different way. He walked forward, taking Midnight by surprise as he followed Shinso. Midoriya, your exit is, the boy craned his head toward her and met her eyes, nudging toward his opponent. Eventually, Midnight cracked a smile. I see. Well, do what you feel you must. Thank you. Izuku went down to meet Shinso, elbowing him slightly to get his attention. What? Shinso was surprised by the sudden action, though he was met with a serious stare from the quirk inheritor. Izuku pointed toward him, then himself, before pointing back toward the tunnel, which Shinso quickly picked up on. You want to talk, is that right? Izuku raised a brow, keeping his stern demeanor, and the purple-haired boy raised his hands. Okay, I get it, don't worry. The match is over anyways. Feel free to talk freely. Good. Izuku stated, thankful to not be under mind control immediately. Because we've got a lot to talk about. With that, the two opponents walked into the same tunnel, much to the confusion of the audience. Once they were away from praying eyes, Izuku leaned up against a wall, holding his injured hand. To tell you the truth, I can relate to a lot of what you've been feeling, Shinso. This earned him a confused look, understandably. You probably won't believe this, but my quirk didn't emerge until recently, around my 14th birthday. That made Shinso's eyes widen. Wait, seriously? Yeah, you probably know how it breaks my bones. Izuku winced, glancing down to his fingers. Well, the doctors think that's part of the reason. My quirk was so powerful that, if it had showed up while I was 4, it would have blown my body to bits. If anything, that made Shinso's gut sink a bit. Damn, I didn't think something like that was possible. No one did, not before me, at least. Izuku balled his fist, ignoring the pain in his fingers. But as you probably saw in the race, I've recently been able to gain better control over it. But honestly, I'm glad to have any quirk at all. For so much of my life, me and my peers all thought I was quirkless, which led to a lot of ridicule and bullying. He saw that Shinso's mouth was open, the boy no doubt trying to take all of this in. But, even without a quirk, I still wanted to be a hero. Sure, I got lucky, but I'm also working hard to get my power under control. I'm far from over the finish line when it comes to my quirk. He gave Shinso a smile. And I can tell, that neither are you. There's so much you can do with your quirk, and I have no doubt that the hero course can help you. Shinso's expression became a bit dour again. PSH, yeah, but only if they let me in. I've still gotta try and convince them of that first. No doubt about it. Izuku raised his fist to him. And I wish you luck with that. I'll make sure to vouch for you when that time comes. Even after what I said about your friends. That, you'll still need to apologize for. Izuku pointed out. I mean, I know you probably didn't mean it. And I didn't. Shinso shook his head. Believe me, it sickened me to even say that stuff, but, I knew I had to get a rise out of you somehow, and I became desperate. He reached over, holding his arm in discomfort. But insulting a woman is an unforgivable act, no matter what context. Any punishment I receive, it's deserved. Izuku roused his hands with a sheepish smile. Well, I don't know if we should go that far. Suddenly, he saw 3 figures appear down the hall behind Shinso, and he paled when he saw that it was none other than Kyoka, Ochako and Keita, the trio standing with their arms crossed. Oh crap. Before Shinso could ask, Kyoka pointed and shouted, there he is. I am. The three girls let out a battle cry and made Shinso gasp, but he couldn't even get anywhere before Kyoka herself leapt in and put him into a chokehold. "Og, ah, wait," Shinso pleaded. I'm so, yeah. He felt a jolt go through his body as Kyoka's jacks plugged into his funny bones, momentarily paralyzing him. "Chaco, Keita, now." With one arm still around his neck, Kyoka raised her other arm along with her two friends, elicit a scream from Hitoshi. "Ah ghh. Bonk, bonk, bonk." But much to his surprise, he didn't feel the onslaught of fists he was expecting, but rather three simple yet swift chops to the top of his head. And even then, they weren't really hard chops either. He blinked in confusion and peered up, only to see the three girls wearing sly grins. "Ha, you shout a, seen your face." Keita smirked. Priceless. At this point, even Izuku had no idea what to make of what was happening, sharing the same awestruck stare as Shinso. "Huh," both uttered. Ochako offered a bright smile as she brushed off Shinso's shoulders, leading to Kyoka hopping off of him. "Sorry about that, just wanted to make sure your lesson really hit home, ya know." I don't understand." Hitoshi pointed at her. "I brainwashed you," he trailed over to Keita and Kyoka. And it's obvious that you two heard my insults toward you, and all I get is 3 bonks on the head." Kyoka rolled her eyes, placing a hand on her hip. "Yeah, well, we were thinking of doing a much harsher punishment, but we came right as you and Izuku were coming in, and we overheard everything. Including how you feel you shouldn't be forgiven for insulting us." Hitoshi bowed to them apologetically. "And I mean that. I shouldn't. I crossed an unforgivable line and, gah." Keita gave him a firm slap across the back, sending him straight to the ground. "Oh, get a hold of yourself, boy." She gripped the back of his shirt and hoisted him to his feet with little effort. "Like Kyo said, we heard everything, including how you didn't really mean anything by it. Believe me, it's still an uncool thing to say, but knowing you don't really think that of us is at least reassuring." Shinso's cheeks flushed a little, his hand going to his neck. Well, you're right, and I'm sorry." He bowed to Kyoka and Ochako again. "Especially to you two. Uraraka, what I did to you, and Jiro, what I implied about you is." "Okay, dude, let's calm down there," Kyoka said, both girls giving his shoulders a small chop each. "Get too into this and we're gonna have to knock some more sense into ya." "Alright, of course." Shinso sighed, noticing Izuku walking up next to him. The purple-haired boy offered him a smile. "I've gotta say, you've got some great friends, Midoriya. Must be nice having so much supportive people to hang out with." "It is, but they don't have to be just my friends, Shinso." Izuku, with the 3 girls flanking him, all sent smiles to Hitoshi. "You can be our friend, too, if you want." This threw the general studies student for yet another loop. Really?" Keita sent him a wink and a thumbs up. "Just so long as ya don't pull any more tricks or say mean stuff, sure. You'd be more than welcome at our table during lunch." Ochako reaffirmed. "We'll tell the guys about what you're really like and then maybe they'll come around to you, too." Shinso wasn't sure what he was feeling right now, but it was something that he definitely liked, he could be sure of that. He closed his eyes and smiled. Thank you, that means a lot." He went to turn down the nearest hall, waving to the group over his shoulder. "I'll keep that thought in mind, but for now, I've gotta get back to my seat. I'll see you all around." Izuku waved back to him. "Sure thing, Goo." His eyes glazed over for a brief second before popping back to normal, only to see Shinso's mirthful smile over his shoulder. Despite himself, Izuku couldn't help but chuckle. Okay then, oof." He snapped his head around, seeing Kyoka and the girls giving him a smirk. What was that for?" "Hey, what else, celery stick?" Kyoka reached up and pulled him into a headlock, giving him a good-natured noogie. "You won. You're moving on to the next round." "Yeah, congratulations, Deku." Ochako raised her hand, putting her fingers in a flicking motion. It was almost all over for a second there, but then, PUTHOOM. You knocked yourself back to reality just by doing that. Keita wore an amused smile at the brunette's description of events, but still, it was fairly accurate. Haha, yeah, and that diving kick attack was unexpected, but pretty cool. She gave Izuku a nudge on his shoulder. You're looking pretty good so far, Midori. I can only hope we do well with our battles, the gray-skinned girl pointed down to his fingers. But you might wanna get your fingers patched up before your next match, Izuku winced and placed a hand over his wrist, holding his injured hand. Why yeah, you've got a point there. I'll meet you guys back at the stands, okay. Gotcha, see you there, Izuku. Kyoka saluted before ushering the girls to follow her. That left Izuku by himself, contemplating everything that had just happened. All things considered, everything had gone better than expected between the girls and Shinso, so that was a plus. But on the other injured hand, Marissa and Recovery Girl are not gonna be happy with me. A few minutes later, he had been proven right. I swear, Midoriya, I don't think I've ever had to heal a single person more within the span of 2 months. Marissa begrudged the one-for-all inheritor after using her quirk to heal his fingers, the 2 digits going limp immediately after. Alright, there we go, just give it a few minutes, as per usual, the healer sighed. Thanks again, Marissa. Izuku smiled gratefully. I know that this isn't something you look forward to at all. The woman shook her head. No, it's fine, honestly, I should be a bit less frustrated. It's not good bedside manner, URK. Without warning, Recovery Girl had come in and whacked her former student over the head with her syringe-shaped cane, admonishing her for the exact same thing. Darn tootin' it isn't. Marissa Fairborn, I thought I'd taught you better than that. I'm so sorry, sensei. Marissa lowered herself onto her knees and hands, bowing to her old teacher with respect. Please, forgive my slip-up. Recovery Girl let out a short breath, the tiny old woman raising her hand. Now, no need to go doing that now. We're far from medical school, you know. Marissa raised her head, her expression apologetic. Besides, if anything, I should be commending you, my dear. Your quirk has only gotten stronger since you've exited medical school. I think it might be even stronger than mine was back in my heyday. Really? Oh yes, if I had healed Midoriya's fingers, he would have needed some additional bandages, but, she gestured to Izuku's fingers, which he had just gotten the feeling back in. You're capable of healing broken bones without much effort. It's very astounding, dear. Marissa bashfully put her hand to her neck, her cheeks flushing a light pink. Oh, sensei, please. I just try to do my best with every patient I see. At that moment, the door to the office opened and in stepped All Might and Optimus, the 2 men's sights going straight to them. Oh, Optimus, All Might, good to see you. Miss Fairborn, always a pleasure. All Might nodded to her. And thanks for patching him up once again, it's much appreciated. He directed his attention straight down to Izuku, placing a hand on his shoulder. How are you feeling, my boy? Izuku brightened up, pumping his fists. I'm feeling great, All Might. I'm moving to the next round. I managed to mend a lot of things with Shinso, and with my fingers all healed, I'm feeling ready to go. Ha, excellent. That's what I was hoping to hear. The symbol of peace cleared his throat. Although, I think that we both know that there's something else we should discuss. Marissa seemed confused at the pro's wording, only for Optimus to extend his hand toward her. Agent Fairborn, my apologies, but this is a private matter that All Might, Izuku and I must discuss. I know this is sudden, but... It's alright, Optimus, I get it. Marissa cocked her head to the side, making sure to give Izuku a wink in support. Gotta talk about quirk-related stuff, yeah. Well, all the same, hope you do well in the second round, Izuku, and try not to break any more bones, okay? Right, of course, Izuku smiled back. Thanks again, Marissa, I'll be seeing ya. With that, Marissa left the room, allowing All Might to poof out of his muscle form. The greenette met the eyes of his anorexic teacher with concern. So, you figured it out. Toshinori raised a brow. I was just going to talk to you about some of the things that Shinso said. I heard some of it, and I know it must have been painful, knowing how much you could relate to him. Izuku blinked in surprise. So All Might hadn't figured it out yet. Well, whatever the case, why yeah, it was. I couldn't smile through that fight like you could, but I still couldn't go easy on him. Of course, like I said, we made up afterwards, but I've gotta keep my eye on the prize. Oh, you poor thing, Recovery Girl shook her head again, sending a glare to the blonde man. Have you been putting too much pressure on him again? Wham! She slammed her fist into his side fairly hard, though thankfully not the side with the grave injury on it. Didn't stop it from hurting, though. Gah, it was necessary, and that hurt. I commend your resolve for victory, Isuku, truly. Optimus applauded, placing a hand on the boy's back. But remember, win or lose, you've already come so far, and no doubt have garnered plenty of attention from pro-heroes across the country. He grinned happily down to his protege. If your performance is anything to go by, plenty of people are going to want to bring you to their agencies, I'm certain. That gave Isuku plenty more confidence, without a doubt. Thanks, Optimus. That means a lot, really, he trailed off as his sights went to his mentor once again. But All Might, there's something you should know. The pro gestured for him to go on. I had some kind of vision in my match. There were people, about 8 of them with glowing yellow eyes, and then a 9th one with bright red ones. Isuku furrowed his brow as he continued to recollect his experience. When I was under Shinso's control, it felt like my brain was full of fog, but then the vision appeared and it completely cleared my head. That's when I was able to move my fingertips. By Primus, Optimus muttered to himself, glancing toward the symbol of peace. Could it be? One of the figures had eyes like yours, All Might. Isuku continued. Do you think, all the people who used One for All in the past were there, pushing me on? Like spirits. But All Might got out of that was, spooky. I'm a GG ghost. Isuku felt gutted at that reaction. I thought you'd have answers. One Toshinori collected himself, however, he scratched his head in thought. Well, actually, I've seen something similar to that, too. In my younger days. He pointed down to Izuku's chest. It's a clear sign that you're closer to making One for All your own power. Oh, what is it, then? I think it's like a trace of the user's spirits that are left behind in One for All when it's passed on. Toshi answered, recalling how his master had told him the same thing. My master and myself experienced the same thing, but don't worry, whatever you saw, it won't be interfering with you or your progress in the future. Izuku sucked in his lips, finding the answer to not be satisfying. Oh okay, so, what about that red-eyed figure? I thought you said that I'm the 9th user of One for All. And you are. Toshinori reassured, his eyes narrowing. But, that thing, I've seen it before as well, and as far as my master and myself could figure, it wasn't a past user. Rather, I think it might be something that's attached itself to One for All in some way, shape or form. It doesn't seem malicious, though at the same time, there's been no discernible way to get rid of it either. He scratched his cheek nervously. And to tell you the truth, I've only seen it once. Any other visions I've had, it was never there. Weird. Izuku rubbed his neck. So, you really think this won't lead to anything? Toshi sighed and ruffled Izuku's hair. Listen, kid, what you did out there, regardless of what you saw, I don't think what you saw is what got rid of the brainwashing. He prodded Izuku's chest with his finger. It was your passion that allowed you to overcome Shinso's power, even if it was only long enough for you to wiggle your fingertips and expel some energy. Don't worry about it, honestly. After hearing all of that, Izuku deflated a little. Man, that explanation is so not satisfying. Throwing his head back, Toshi let out a groan. Forget about it. He pointed to his student once more. More importantly, shouldn't you be worried about who you're fighting next? Young Iida and young Hatsume are up next, ya know. You're right. Izuku sprung up and ran straight for the door, waving to his 2 mentors as he rushed off. Thanks for the talk, guys. I'll catch you later. Farewell for now, Izuku. Optimus returned before the boy left entirely. Once he was, though, he saw that All Might seemed to be in a state of introspection himself. So, he saw you there as well. Without facing him, Toshi responded, that's a good thing. There was a long pause before the Prime went on. You know, I have had similar visions myself in the past, where the Primes would briefly appear before me. I even saw Alpha Trion before his passing as well. Optimus tilted his head toward the symbol of peace. I am not certain if One for All works in the same way, but if you're thinking what I assume you are. Let's not talk about this right now, Toshi waved off, proceeding toward the door himself. There's still a lot of the festival left to go, and I'd rather not be the downer here. It didn't take long for Izuku to get to the box where his classmates were seated, but when he did get there, he was met with an unexpected welcome. Hey, there he is. The first person to see him was Sid, the disguised Autobot, giving him a thumbs up as everyone's attention was brought to him. Isuku, dude, awesome job out there. Not far behind him, Brian was there as well, meeting Isuku with a bright smile and an arm around his shoulders. Whoa, Brian, Sid, what are you doing here? Oh, these are our seats. Sid extended his arm toward 1A's box, where Isuku was stunned to see Sunny, Buck, Sadie, Stella, and Jeff all gathered around, sitting with his classmates. Nezu figured that we'd wanna be close to Ya, so he let us sit here. Jeff pointed over at Isuku with a wide grin. Show, nah. And, the boys, right. Great job down there, Isuku. Next to him, Eijiro offered Isuku a handshake. Yeah, we've been waiting on ya, man. Congrats. Yeah, things definitely seemed hairy at the start, but ya crushed it in the end. Sunny echoed their sentiments as he stood up with Denki. Yeah, thanks. Isuku returned, still coming to grips with the unexpected praise. As he came over, Denki offered Isuku a fist bump. Yeah, Midoriya, you totally nailed it. Only hope I can have some of that same luck in my match. Oh, of course. Best of luck down there, Kaminari. Thanks, man. Denki wore a confident smile as he then gave Sunny a thumbs up. Alright, I'm off to the waiting rooms. After Ida's match, the show belongs to me. But the elder Autobot twin furrowed his brow at Denki, seeing that the blonde wasn't being more focused. Okay, confidence I can get behind, but remember what happened just a few days ago. Back at you-know-where. Instantly, he saw his friend's demeanor change, no doubt remembering the events at the Decepticon ship. I think we both learned that overconfidence can be a hindrance, so make sure to keep a level head down there. And remember, don't underestimate your opponent either. She may be pretty, but her thorns aren't just for show. Denki curtly nodded to his Autobot partner. Right, gotcha. And don't worry, I won't just waste my volts, just like you advised. Sunstreaker smiled proudly, giving the blonde a pat on the arm. Good kid, no, go down there and show her what you're made of. And with that, the electrification user left, with Sunny saluting after him. Hey Midori, over here. Izuku's attention was immediately brought to Mina as waved him over, pointing down to one of the empty seats near Kyoka and Ochako. We saved ya a spot. Thanks guys. Izuku began making his way down the steps toward his seat, though not before seeing Ojiro giving him a thumbs up. No doubt Kyoka must have told him about what happened, but all the same, Izuku returned the gesture before sitting down with Eijiro. He then noticed that all of his friends were sitting in one big group, and it didn't take him long to figure out why. They were forming a protective barrier around him, because Bakugo was sitting on the opposite side. Even Brian had chosen not to sit with his fellow Autobots in favor of adding further protection to the green bean. Granted, it seemed like Eijiro and maybe Denki were sitting closer to the explosive blonde, but if anything, they were attempting to be the bridge between the gap of the two boys. That or they were the first line of defense. Either way, how successful that would be remained to be seen. But just then, Izuku was brought out of his thoughts when a voice he had heard only a few minutes earlier piped up. Apologies for the wait, my friends. The greenette snapped his head back quick as a flash, seeing Orion walking over to the seats. His presence was immediately felt by the students, his grizzled voice successfully garnering their attention. I was catching up with an old friend of mine who I haven't seen in quite some time. Whoa, who's that? Sato murmured. I dunno, but anyone else getting chills from his voice alone? Zero whispered. Buck quickly answered their questions, jerking his thumb toward his leader. Hey, boys, that is our leader. The rest of 1A were left staring at the man in awe, all while those in the know smirked at their reaction. Indeed, students. My name is Orion Pax. The Autobot leader introduced himself. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance. With a voice like that, the pleasure should be all ours. Toru muttered. Alright, everybody, enough waiting around. Present Mike's voice once again echoed through the stadium, bringing the focus back down to the battlefield. It's time for the second match. Get ready to watch two new players duke it out. Orion sat down in the nearest seat, his height still making him tower over everyone even as he sat down. Perfect, Tenya and May are up next, if I'm not mistaken. This should be interesting, hero course versus support. Yeah, Who can guess what this fight's going to look like? Sadie concurred with her commander. Down on the battlefield, Tenya and Mei took to their respective sides, all while Present Mike introduced them. He's the kid with engines in his legs, it's Tenya Iida from the hero course. Versus, a fully equipped gadget dynamo. The support course's Mei Hatsume. Let's see which smarty pants will come out on top. From what the rest of 1A could see, Iida seemed a bit perturbed by Mike's comment, but nevertheless, he was ready for battle. But then something weird happened. He pulled something out from behind him and began putting it on his body. Huh, what's up with Iida? Sato muttered. The spectacled boy was now wearing some sort of brace and on his body, his legs now armed up with struts and vented knee covers. He also had a strange shoulder-mounted apparatus that resembled a pair of small wings, with 3 tiny tubes on each one all dangling from the ends. Where the heck did he get all that gear from? I dunno, kid, Buck answered, offering Sato a shrug. But I do know this, he looks freakin' ridiculous. Stella slapped her forehead in frustration. Ah, Iida, what did she get you into? Midnight had also taken issue with Tenya's strange gear, giving him a serious glare. Hero Course students can't use support gear unless they absolutely need to. And you didn't fill out any of the proper paperwork for that. Tenya let out a gasp. What? I didn't know that was the rule. He snapped his hand over to the stands in his usual stiff manner. Aoyama got to wear his belt, so I thought it was fine. He filled out the proper forms. Midnight stated, raising a brow at Tenya. I apologize, ma'am. Tenya bowed remorsefully, but felt compelled to give his reasoning for wearing the gear. It's just, my heart was moved by my friend and opponent's sportsmanship. She wanted to be as even a match as possible since she made it this far using her gear, so she felt it was only fair that she'd lend me this equipment as well. To have a fair fight. Tenya snapped up and placed his hand over his chest. So to honor her, I would like to wear this gear. The only way Midnight's face could be described was, eager. Such youthful vigor. Oh. She practically squirmed in place as she giggled, only for her to regain her composure to give her ruling. I'll allow it. Really? Well, if everyone's on the same page, let's begin the third match. With Present Mike's signal, the match was officially underway, but back up in the stands, Isuku felt a bit uneasy about the whole situation. Weird, that doesn't seem like something that Hatsume would do, even if we're her friends, unless, he quickly took notice of the small ear-mounted mic that Mei had, and the fact that she was smirking giddily. Oh no, Iida's done for. Ochako and Kyoka tilted their heads. What d'ya mean, Deku? Just watch. Izuku facepalmed. After getting into his ready position, Iida dashed off, the engines in his legs blasting him forward for a running start. However, Mei didn't move an inch, and instead began speaking. Betcha love how fast that gear makes you, huh, Iida? Her voice echoed through the whole stadium, taking her opponent aback. Wait, she has a mic. Is she wearing speakers? Don't your legs feel lighter than usual? That's to be expected. I designed those leg parts specifically to increase the wearer's speed and mobility. But of course, just as Tenya was about to make contact with her, he heard a beeping noise and, without warning, an extending strut suddenly came out of Mei's backpack at a diagonal angle, sending her straight up into the air. This also had the effect of tripping the engine quirk user, too. I can easily evade you with my hydraulic attachments. As she fell to her feet, Mei used her quirk to zoom in on a certain set of boxes on the upper part of the stadium. Hee. Those are boxes for support companies. And once she saw their surprised and awestruck faces, she knew that they were very interested in her devices. Yes, they love my babies. I've got this in the bag. Tenya miraculously hadn't fallen when he got tripped, so he went back around to try for a sneak attack, only to hear another beep. Mei was lifted up by her other hydraulic pole, much to Tenya's dismay. Since I've got sensors in every direction, it's impossible for an opponent to sneak up on me. Gah, ow. Tenya tripped again, but the dangling tubes on his wing-like apparatus began puffing out small bursts of air, keeping him from falling and getting him repositioned. What the heck is going on? Look at how adeptly Iida just changed his course. It's all thanks to the genius auto balancer I created. Best of all, there's absolutely no lag time. After a repeat of events that resulted in Tenya tripping toward the boundary line, the auto balancer made him start spinning like a top and away from the line. The auto balancer is equipped with a custom 32-axis gyro sensor. As you can see, it can keep the user from falling unless they actually want to. After recovering from his dizziness, Tenya blasted forward again, growing more and more frustrated with his friend. I thought you wanted this to be a fair fight. But May just smirked as she widened her stance, the metal discs in the ankles of her boots beginning to glow and spin at a fast rate. And, just as Tenya was about to close the distance, she jumped, way higher than he expected. Haha, that's right, I'm practically flying through the air. She pointed down at her footwear. These electro shoes use electromagnetic induction on both feet. They're perfect for evasive maneuvers or just keeping things light. Back up in the stands, the entirety of 1A and the Autobots were staring on in disbelief at what they were seeing. Is this seriously happening right now? Kyoka asked. I'm afraid it is, Momo affirmed. Hatsume tricked Iida and now she's using him as her own personal test subject. More than that, she's turned the sports festival into one giant commercial. Izuku deadpanned. Well, on the bright side, Sid piped up. Pretty sure Red's getting a kick out of this. Tenya made a sharp turn and went for May again. As soon as she lands, I'll stop her. But the very second her feet touched terra firma, May pulled out a small handheld weapon and pointed it at her opponent, blasting out a small capsule that exploded into a large, red net. Now fully entangled, Tenya fell face first into the dirt, all while struggling to escape. Ah, what is this? A capture gun to use against villains. May explained, winking as she held her gun up. The nets are loaded into small cartridges. You can fire up to 5 before having to reload. She spun around, making sure she was facing the boxes with the support companies in them. And all of these items were developed by yours truly, Mai Hatsume. Support Course Prodigy. She spread her arms out to present herself. So, to any support companies out there searching for strong, new recruits, the choice is clear, you want ME. Again, I'm Mai Hatsume, that's Hatsume. Good God, how many inventions did Red help her make? Mina wondered. And now, let me introduce you to a few more of my babies. Mina immediately regretted saying that out loud. I'm sorry I asked. A full 10 minutes had passed before May was finally done with her presentation, and she ended it by stepping over the boundary line, wearing a bright smile as she willingly eliminated herself. Phew. Well, that was fun, but now I think I've shown off everything I wanted to. She wiped the sweat from her brow and stated with finality, I suppose it's time for me to wrap things up. Midnight blinked in surprise, but raised her hand nonetheless. Hatsume stepped out of bounds. Iida advances to the next round. You tricked me. Iida bellowed, the boy in a fervor as his signature chopping motions were almost at blinding speed. I can't believe I let you do that. I should have known. With a sly smirk, May glanced away from her friend. Sorry, Specs, but I had to make a name for myself somehow. I looked like a fool. A very helpful fool. Gah. On the dark side, meanwhile, the Decepticons had been, rather silent throughout the whole match. They could only watch completely dumbfounded as May used Tenya as her personal toy to test out her inventions, though they were admittedly amazed at all of the new and unique ways she could torture him with her devices, and they weren't even meant for torture. Even Megatron himself was perplexed at all that was going on. Well, that was interesting. The Decepticon leader commented. The only one making any noise was Blastwave, the Decepticon bruiser, finding great amusement in watching Tenya be toyed with. Ahahaha, ho ha ho. Oh, that slaps me on the knee. Puny little man spun like blown off wheel. Ahahaha. Well, I will admit, it was rather interesting to see the Autobots, human mechanic displaying her inventions. Flatline pointed out. Now they know exactly what she is capable of creating for them. Yes, and they are all useless compared to our technology. Shadow Striker pointed out. What a waste of time. Barricade crossed his arms and grumbled. Yeah, even I'm starting to get a bit bored with all this. Where the hell is the violence? Frenzy echoed his partner's sentiments. Yeah, I tuned in specifically to see human children get hurt. Hey. First off, wow, dark. Thundercracker piped up. And secondly, you two really gotta have more patience. It's only the first round of the tournament, after all, and you gotta make sure the weak links are weeded out before getting to the real action. He lowered his head toward Megatron on the screen. Of course, no doubt our renowned leader knows well about that given his time in the arena. Megatron grinned internally, especially as he saw Starscream sour at his brother's compliment, yet he kept a straight face. See, Starscream, this is how you grovel properly. Still, he gave Thundercracker a nod. Indeed, Thundercracker. Let us be patient and wait out the first round. The remaining contestants must have some value. Tenya sat in his seat after returning to his class's box, still visibly frustrated by what had happened. His friends were all giving him words of encouragement on his way in, but that did nothing to lighten his mood after being used as a plaything. I feel so humiliated, so used. Well, on the bright side, you are moving on to the next round. Stella reminded, the Autobot cadet giving her charge a pat on the back. And honestly, if this had been a real fight, you probably would have moved on anyway. May's many things, but I think she'd even admit that she's not a fighter, even if she used plenty of her inventions. HMPH, I suppose. But if anything, this has been an enlightening experience. That made Tenya tilt his head at Stella. In what sense? Stella pointed upward. When it comes to the horizontal, you're pretty fast and quite capable, but May had you beat when it came to the vertical. We'll need to start working on getting you into the air a bit more. Tenya clenched his teeth worriedly. Please don't make me fly. His reaction got his whole friend group, and even the rest of his class laughing, though that didn't last long as Present Mike began announcing the next match. Well, after that, different kind of match, let's move on to the third. On the right side of the stadium, Abara Shiozaki appeared through the tunnel, taking her place on the concrete battlefield. Even beautiful flowers have thorns. It's the assassin from Class 1B, Abara Shiozaki. And on the left, Denki entered as well, wearing his usual cocksure grin. Versus the boy with the electrifying personality. Another hero in the making, Denki Kaminari. Keep those eyes peeled, because I wanna see a super flashy battle this time. Sunny immediately shot up out of his seat and started cheering for his boy. Woo! Go get, Denki. Just remember, don't get distracted by your hormonal urges. This is a competition, not a dating sim. Kyoka deadpanned at the rather odd encouraging words. The fact that Kaminari has to be reminded of that isn't something I'm surprised by. Hey, what's she doing down there? Excuse me. Abara had walked to the edge of the battlefield and called up to Present Mike in the announcer's booth, taking the teacher off guard as she raised her hand to him. Please pardon the interruption. I'm not sure why you called me an assassin just now. I've come to the festival in search of victory, not to take my opponent's life. That wouldn't be in line with the values of a hero at all, sir. Alright. Present Mike sheepishly replied, with Aizawa looking perplexed at what was going on. Sorry about that. But Abara felt compelled to say more. Gentlemen, I didn't enter UA for wicked or selfish reasons, but to deliver salvation to others. No one could explain it, but it almost seemed as if an ethereal, heavenly light was being shined onto Abara as she cupped her hands, almost like she was praying. It's my humble quest to spread true good across this world. Listen, I said I was sorry. Present Mike repeated. My bad, okay. The vine-haired girl smiled, finding this satisfactory. I thank you for your kind understanding. Up in the stands, though, the Autobots had no idea what to make of this. Well, she certainly seems like a nice girl. Orion commented. Very polite as well, though a bit heavy-handed on her explanations. Suyu decided to give her thoughts on the matter. Ribbit, I heard that Shiozaki comes from a very religious family. Maybe that's why she's so well-mannered and well-spoken. Could be. Mezzo Shoji mumbled behind his mask. Though it would be rude to assume. Agreed. Tokiyami lowered his head. Simply judging someone based on their background is rather close-minded, we should remember that. Back on the battlefield, though, Denki was left fairly surprised at Abara's kind demeanor. Man, here I thought everyone in 1B were jerks, but I was totally wrong, and it wasn't long before he was starting to get entranced. But wow, look at those big, beautiful eyes. And she seems pretty strong, too. Within a split second, however, Sunstraker's words rang through his mind again, snapping him out of the spell. "Gah, come on you idiot. Remember, this is a competition. She may be cute, but you've gotta fight now, and then you can potentially ask her out. So, anyway, begin." Present Mike gave the word. Denki offered a small smile to start out with, going for some witty banter. "So, I gotta say, I'm honestly kind of surprised." By what?" Abara asked. "What you did just now." Denki pointed up to the booth. "Honestly, given the attitudes that 1B displayed so far, I was worried that everyone in the class was." "Oh, yes, I'm so sorry." Abara bowed briefly in apology. "As you might have guessed, a lot of my classmates have been rather jealous of your class after the USJ incident. With you all getting a lot of attention and all." She placed her hand over her chest. "But I feel no such envy. I think the best course of action would be to maintain peace between our classes, in all honesty." That made the electric blonde's smile widen. "Hey, I'm all for that, honestly. Better than being at each other's throats all the time." He popped a few muscles in his neck and began pouring some electricity into his arms. "But let's keep in mind, this is a competition, so let's give it our all here and then make peace." "Right, of course." Abara's vines began moving on their own as she widened her own stance, prepared for anything her opponent would throw at her. As they say, bring it on. With that, Denki sprinted forward, ready to throw down. "That's what I plan on doing. Gia." He thrust a hand forward as he went for a shot at Abara's shoulder, only for his hand to get engulfed by the thorny vines. "Og. An excellent first move, but I believe your lack of research shows." Abara saw his other hand coming in for a swift chop toward her midsection, but her hair just managed to entangle that one, making him scream again. "I am able to control my vines in any way I chose, as you can plainly see." The girl from 1B began feeling a slight tingle a moment later, watching as Denki's hands continued to spark. "Goo, come on, why isn't it working, Gia ouch." Without warning, Abara twisted her body so that she actually threw Denki over her head using her vines, detaching them at the last minute as she slammed him on the ground. And, in mere seconds, more vines grew out of her head. This got Present Mike reasonably hyped up. "Whoa ho. Get a load of that, folks. Shiozaki's vines are the real deal. Able to hold onto a person even as she throws them around. Talk about plant power." Abara watched as Denki carefully removed the vines, though it didn't relieve the pain all that much as there were still thorns stuck in his arms. "If you're curious as to why I wasn't affected by your electricity, it's because plant matter isn't a natural conductor." She took a battle-ready stance once more. "In other words, you are at a disadvantage when it comes to me." "Huh, yeah, I see that. Impressive." Denki removed another needle from his arm and flicked it away. "Well, now that you've made your point." His gut did a flip when he saw his pun get a reaction out of her, Abara sucking in her lips as she stifled a snicker. "I almost got her to laugh. Even if I lose, I'll consider that a win." His smirk returned as his entire body began to surge with lightning. "Let me prove my point." Indiscriminate shock, 1.3 million volts. All at once, a powerful lightning blast burst out and went straight for Shiozaki, though she didn't seem too perturbed. Instead, she simply turned around and made a large chunk of vines fall out of her head, planting them straight into the ground. In an instant, the vines grew out into a thick, thorny wall that blocked the blast, all while Abara kept complete control over them. "Okay, should have seen that coming," Denki admitted, only feeling a little fuzzy in the head. Training with Sunstraker's finally paying off. But, a few seconds later, the cement floor began to rumble and crack, taking him off guard. Wait, what the, ah. All at once, a bunch of vines shot out of the ground at Denki, entangling him and raising him straight up into the air. The sudden impact was enough to stop him from blasting more electricity, the pain of thousands of thorns proving to be too much for him. Og. Crap crap crap. Ouch. Midnight craned her head up to Denki, wearing an amused smile. Ooh, lucky boy, experiencing that much pain. But nevertheless, Kaminari, can you move? I think og. No, can't do it. Can't do it. Very well then. Midnight waved her flog over to Abara. The winner is Shiozaki. She advances on. There ya have it, folks. Present Mike declared. Kaminari is immobilized. He gave a good fight, but it was over in an instant. As Abara's hair grew back and her vine shield went down, she bowed to her teacher as she set her opponent upon the ground. I'm just so thankful I was able to make the most of this opportunity. She immediately jogged to Denki's side, kneeling down to bow her head to him. And thank you for the rousing battle, truly. You gave a good fight. Ha, I can say the same for you. Denki nodded back. Thanks for not holding back. What was your name again? Denki Kaminari. Nice to meet you. Abara's smile increased. Abara Shiozaki. Likewise. Up in the stands, Sunstreaker gave a sigh as he watched Denki be helped to the back by a couple of medical drones, with Abara waving him off. As unfortunate as it was that his charge had lost, he didn't view it as a complete loss. I've got a feeling that he's gonna be just fine. He himself had to admit as well, that Shiozaki girl was pretty talented, and from the sounds of it, her class agreed. Oh yeah, Tetsu shouted in the box next to 1A's. Way to represent class 1B. I'll admit, she's pretty good. Kyoka concurred. Glad you think so. The Autobots and the entirety of 1A all jumped at the sight of Monoma popping his head up over the divider between the boxes, wearing the most haughty, arrogant grins that any of them had ever seen. Guess Present Mike was right, the match really was over in an instant. Hey, wasn't Class 1A supposed to be so much better than us? Your boy might be electrifying, but I think he's only just killed his own buzz. Ahahaha, Gurk. Much to everyone's shock and confusion, Monoma's eyes rolled into the back of his head as he lost conscious, no doubt because of the hand that chopped him right in his neck. The hand grabbed his collar as he fell down, with its owner popping her head up over the divide. Sorry about him, Itsuka Kendo said, the redhead smiling in apology. He doesn't speak for all of us. Kyoka, Momo, Mina and Keita were still rather disturbed by that, though. I really hate that guy, they all thought to themselves. Man, it's too bad that Kaminari couldn't advance. Ochako lamented, only to notice Izuku jotting something down in a burnt notebook next to her. Deku, what you got there? Izuku snapped his head up at the question, suddenly feeling a little embarrassed. Oh, sorry, I was just writing down some notes about Abara in my notebook. After all, it's not every day I get to see so many incredible quirks from people outside our class. Not a bad idea, Green Bean. Kyoka peered over his shoulder at the book, only for her jaw to drop. Not only did Izuku manage to take down several notes, but he pretty much just drew Abara's face and hair pretty much flawlessly. There were a few arrows with little notes scribbled near them, pointing out certain things about the girl's hair and how it worked, but that wasn't what Kyoka was focused on. Izuku. What? Izuku closed his book instantly. I'm sorry, I didn't. Don't be sorry. I had no idea you knew how to draw this good. And just like that, the boy was left baffled, his grip loosening and allowing his book to open again. Ochako, Momo and several others were then able to see the drawing itself, and were also left awestruck. Deku. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. More than that, it's astounding. Momo complimented. How did you get so good? Just practice, I guess. Izuku blushed, hiding behind the notebook a little. I've drawn heroes basically all my life, so I guess I have a small talent for it. Dude, that's so cool. Kirishima knocked a fist against Izuku's shoulder. So, have ya drawn any of us? Izuku twiddled his thumbs. Well, not exactly. I didn't know how you guys would feel if I just drew any of you. I've got lots of notes on you guys, but, however, just from their shining eyes alone, he could tell that it must have been something they all wanted. I take it you guys do want me to draw you, right? He received several nods, leading him to sigh and crack open his notebook. Well, no time like the present. Down on the lower levels, Shoto Todoroki was moving through the halls, ready to get his own match underway. No surprise that Midoriya advanced, he said to himself. I knew he would, the second he went around the corner to his entry tunnel. However, he saw probably the most unwelcome sight he could ever be met with. What do you want? There, leaning up against the wall, was Endeavor. The flame hero glared at his son out the corner of his eye as he approached, though Shoto kept his eyes straight forward as he did. You're acting disgracefully, Shoto. Endeavor stated bluntly. If you simply used the power in your left side, you would have had an overwhelming victory in both of the past rounds. He watched as Shoto passed him, not even sparing a glance. It's time to stop this childish rebellion of yours. You have a duty to surpass that imbecile All Might. Do you understand what I'm saying? You're different from your siblings. You're my greatest masterpiece. Without even stopping, Shoto spoke back to him. Is that all you have to say to me, you bastard? Endeavor didn't seem to have much of a reaction, as if he had heard that insult used several times already. I'll win this match and advance using only Mom's quirk. I won't give you the pleasure of seeing me use yours. HMPH, Endeavor grunted, closing his eyes as his son walked away. Even if that works for you in this tournament, you'll soon find the limits of that power. But what the number 2 hero didn't see, was the dark expression on his son's face. One full of pure, unfiltered, disdain. Enough standing around. Present Mike's cry got everyone cheering again, which only increased in volume as the next 2 competitors took the field. It's time for the first bracket's 4th match. Please, welcome our next players. He's got skills, but at the expense of some creepy looking elbows. From the hero course, it's Hanta Zero. Zero, who was doing a bit of stretching before the match got underway, kept his grin even at the backhanded comment. Hey, well that was uncalled for. Versus an early forerunner in the competition who's way too strong for his own good. Someone who rightfully got into the hero course based on recommendations. It's Shoto Todoroki. From the stands, the rest of 1A noticed that Shoto seemed a bit off. He was keeping his head low so that his hair covered his eyes, almost as if a shadow had been cast over his vision. He kept his fists at his sides, and he didn't seem to move an inch after he got out there. Man, that dude's giving me even colder vibes than when I saw him on TV. Sid uttered, rubbing his arms as a chill went through him. On this, we can actually agree. Stella concurred, her sights moving down to Isuku. Isn't that the boy who you said declared war on you? Yeah, but something doesn't seem right. Isuku furrowed his brow. He wasn't entirely sure, but it almost seemed as if Shoto's chilling determination from their conversation earlier had been replaced by something much darker. It was unnerving, to say the least. Ready, begin. Once the word had been given to start the match, Zero groaned. Well, I don't feel like I can win this fight, snap. In a blink and you'll miss it moment, he thrust his elbows forward and sent 2 long strands of tape out, wrapping them around his opponent and then whipping him around straight toward the boundary line. But man, I don't feel like losing, either. Whoa, that was fast. Keita exclaimed. No kidding. Sadie breathed out. He's got some quick reflexes. Present Mike certainly thought the same thing. That attack could throw Todoroki out of bounds. A brilliant surprise opening from the underdog. Way to start off strong, Zero. It was only then that Shoto brought his head up, and what Izuku and Orion immediately noticed were his eyes. There was a darkness behind them, a gaze full of such sorrow and anger that there was no mistaking it. Shoto was upset at something, and he was about to take out his frustration on Zero. Apologies. Shoto stopped himself with an ice construct before immediately freezing the tape around him, the ice traveling up and towards Zero, and then it happened. With one swipe of his foot, Shoto Todoroki created an enormous mountain of ice that went far past the battlefield at a diagonal angle. It went up so high that it went past the central part of the stadium and over the roof, getting in the faces of audience members, students and even the announce booth. Present Mike was left slack-jawed as he could feel the cold coming through the glass window in front of him, while the students below were all screaming in fear as the ice practically shielded them from the sun itself. The Autobots, however, were all left shaking. That child, that human child, had just done that. Holy scrap. Buck muttered. What even is this kid? Even Optimus couldn't believe what he was seeing. He craned his head down toward the battlefield to see Zero encased at the very base of the ice mountain, only his upper half just barely remaining unfrozen. Even then, his arms were useless, and he was no doubt freezing. His eyes trailed to Shoto, who broke free of the frozen tape easily. Inside the main bridge of the dark side, even the Decepticons were left completely stunned by what the half-and-half quirk user had just done. Starscream was rubbing his optics to make sure he had seen everything correctly, and indeed, the ice mountain was there. By Trion's beard, the Seeker commander shot out of his seat. What the pit just happened? I'll tell you what happened. Skywarp pointed to Shoto. That kid just let off some major steam. How the pit did he not pull out that trick in the last couple of rounds? Dunno, but he looks pretty whipped. Unicronus noticed that Shoto's whole right side was covered in a fine frost, no doubt from using his power in such capacity. But then, he also saw that even Megatron was at a loss for words, the Decepticon leader staring at his screen as he processed what just happened. Lord Megatron. Megatron blinked and directed his attention to his general. Unicronus, that boy, is he an ally of the Autobots? No, sir, not from what we can tell. The Dark Decepticon replied. We've never seen him before today. Good. Best we keep it that way. Megatron growled. If a youngling as strong as he were to ally with the Autobots, there's no telling what he could bring to the table. Midnight was trembling in her thigh-high boots, standing with her right side frozen in ice, in the referee position. All the same, though, she continued to do her job. Be honest, Zero, can you move at all? Are you kidding me? Zero stuttered in his frigid position. Obviously not. My body is freezing. Zero has been immobilized. Todoroki advances to the second round. At her announcement, the crowd began cheering, but not exactly for Shoto. But rather, for Zero's efforts, though it wasn't exactly the kind of support the tape user would have wanted to hear. Nice try, kid. Yeah, nice try, nice try, nice try, nice try, nice try. With the battle over, Shoto began using his left side in the smallest capacity possible, enfrosting himself before going up to Zero and placing his hand on his classmate's chest. Sorry about going overboard, it was a bit much. Shoto lowered his head as he began thawing Zero out. I was just angry, is all. Up in the stands, however, Isuku and Optimus had taken notice. Something had changed in Shoto from the last time they saw him, and not for the better. And it's the end of Season 2 Part 14 of this What If. I hope you guys like it. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment down below and subscribe to the channel.